My girlfriend is pregnant, so let's get a divorce. Get out of my sight, you 40-year-old who can't have kids, my husband said while holding his lover's shoulder. His lover stared at the ground, trembling. It was easy to understand why. Let me explain who I am. My name is Emery, and I'm a 40-year-old businesswoman. I've always been good at studying. After graduating from a top university, I started working for a foreign company. I worked in one of their offices abroad for many years. When I returned to the U.S., I was promoted to department head. I had a great career, and a wonderful personal life with my partner, Noah. Noah was my university classmate. We started dating when we were both 21. We spent a lot of time together in college, studying and getting to know each other. Our friendship turned into a romantic relationship when he confessed his feelings for me. We got married 3 years after graduation, just before I was sent to Japan for a 5-year work assignment. I was nervous about being long distance, but Noah was so serious about being with me. He quit his job and came to Japan with me. I was happy he was that committed, so I agreed to marry him. We lived in Japan, and I was busy with work. Noah worked part-time at a local restaurant. We often got free food from his job, so I didn't have to cook. It was great not having to worry about dinner every day, and we got to enjoy traveling around Japan on weekends. After 5 years, we returned to the U.S., where I started working at the main office of my company. I was busy again, but Noah, who had learned a lot about cooking in Japan, also worked at a restaurant back home. Everything was going well, except for one thing: we couldn't have children. We tried for years, but I couldn't get pregnant. Even after going through several fertility treatments, after 5 years, we gave up on having kids. We decided it would just be the two of us. Since we had spent so much time abroad, we hadn't seen much of the US, so we started traveling around, enjoying different foods and tourist spots. It was fun, and I dreamed of a happy future with Noah. Things were going well at work too. I was promoted to department head, and I had a great team to manage. Then, one day, I saw someone familiar among the new hires. "Lily, is that you?" "Huh, Auntie?" It was my niece. I hadn't seen her in 10 years. Last time, she was just a 6th grader, and now she was all grown up. I didn't expect her to be working here. "It's been so long. How's my sister? Is she still strict with you?" I asked. "Yeah, she's still strict. That's why I moved here after college," Lily replied. "I can't believe you work here," I said, surprised. "Yeah, I was shocked too," she answered. I then joked, "Are you a clerk or something?" She didn't seem happy with that question and replied in a way that made me feel like she was looking down on me. It seemed like she was trying to say I was too old to be working here. It made me wonder if I should teach her some manners. At the morning meeting, all the new employees introduced themselves. When it was Lily's turn, she spoke in a very polished way, saying, "There are so many young, cool, and reliable colleagues here. I'm excited to learn from them." The way she emphasized how young everyone was made me angry, but I kept it to myself. Afterward, I stood up to introduce myself to everyone. "I'm the department head, Emery. We really appreciate the fresh energy new employees bring. We'll make sure to help you learn everything, so don't worry about making mistakes. Just do your best." Everyone clapped after I finished speaking. My niece, Lily, stared at me with wide eyes, looking guilty. Later that day, during lunch break, Lily came over to talk to me. "Auntie, I'm sorry about what I said about being a part-time clerk. I didn't mean it." I asked, a bit sharply, "What are you sorry for?" "Well, I said the company is mostly full of young people." "You realized that was rude, huh?" "Yeah, I'm really sorry." I decided to forgive her, but I added, "I'll let it go this time, but if you act that way with others, like customers, it could cause problems." "I understand. I'm sorry." I was glad she understood her mistake. Then, I called my sister. "Wait, the company Lily is working at is yours?" she asked. "Did you forget? You're too focused on farming to remember anything else," I teased her. "Well, you're not completely wrong," she laughed. "I'm happy she's with you. Please keep an eye on her for me." "I will," I promised. After talking with my sister, I continued to teach Lily about the company, but I didn't treat her differently from the other new employees. "You made a mistake here. Be careful next time." "Got it, thanks," Lily responded eagerly. She always replied with energy, and I tried my best to guide her, but soon, I started to realize something about Lily. One rainy day, I went to the break room to heat up my lunch. I overheard Lily talking with some of the other new female employees. I wasn't planning to listen, but then I heard Lily say something that shocked me. "That old lady is so annoying. I'm sick of her." At first, I wasn't sure if she meant me or someone else, but then she continued. "She's my mom's younger sister, so I guess it makes sense that she's like this." I couldn't believe it. She was talking about me. Why is she still working full-time if she's married? I can't stand women like her who keep working like this when they're that old. I felt my heart drop. How could Lily say something so mean? Here I was, trying my best to teach her kindly, and she thought so badly of me. I had been strict with her at times, but I never crossed any lines. Why would she talk about me like this? She acted like a good girl in front of me, but hearing how she spoke behind my back really hurt. After her training period, Lily had to start working on her own, but she kept making mistake after mistake, being careless, and causing problems for everyone. It got so bad that even the male staff started getting frustrated with her. I couldn't believe how someone like Lily even got hired. She graduated from a prestigious university, but her memory was terrible. I started to wonder if her academic record was even true. My colleagues and I had to spend a lot of time fixing her mistakes, and it made everyone busier than usual. At the same time, my relationship with my husband, Noah, was falling apart. "Another late night? Yeah, sorry, please eat without me." "Fine, I already made dinner for both of us. Sorry, I'll eat the leftovers when I get home." Noah wasn't happy that I kept staying late at work. When I got home, he was usually in a bad mood. Sometimes, he was already in bed. Since he worked in the restaurant industry, his weekends were always busy, and he'd often go drinking with his coworkers after work, coming home past midnight. Because of this, we were spending less and less time together. I never thought things would end up like this after we had gotten along so well for so long. Meanwhile, Lily was causing even more problems at work. She started taking regular time off, claiming she didn't feel well. Even though she made constant mistakes, she could still do some tasks, but by taking so many days off, other people had to take over her work, and everyone had to work more overtime. As department head, I didn't know what to do. Between work and my personal life, I was completely drained. Then, my husband did something unbelievable. It was a weekend. I had just finished dinner and was relaxing at home when Noah finally came in around 11 p.m. As he entered the living room, I noticed someone was following him. "Welcome home." "Oh, we have a guest," I said, looking at the person behind him. It was someone I never expected to see. She had a smug look on her face, but as soon as she saw me, her face went pale. Noah didn't seem to notice anything and began speaking. "This is my girlfriend." "Huh?" "Yeah, and I've decided to marry her." "Wait, what? Marry her?" "Don't be too shocked. She's pregnant with my child." "Excuse me?" "I'm going to take responsibility and marry her. She's only 18 years old, after all." "What, 18? Don't misunderstand. She's graduated high school and is of legal age. This is a legal relationship, and her pregnancy proves that I don't have any issues," he said, looking at me. "It's your fault we couldn't have a baby," he added, as if it was my fault. "My girlfriend is pregnant, so let's get a divorce. Get out of my sight, you infertile 40-year-old, Noah said, wrapping his arm around his lover's shoulders. But his lover, Lily, stared at the ground, shaking uncontrollably. Her reaction was completely understandable. "What is going on, Lily?" I asked. Noah was shocked. "You know Lily?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You two never met after we got married, did you?" "Lily is my niece. She's my sister's daughter." "No way, you two are related?" Noah said, looking back and forth between us in disbelief. Lily kept her head down. "I don't know why she lied to you, but Lily is 22 years old and works at my company." "What?" Noah stammered. I could see he was in shock, but I was shaken, too, by everything being revealed. "Wait, you're not 18? He asked, completely stunned. It turned out they had met on a dating app, which was gross enough, considering Noah was already married. They met up, and Noah acted like a sugar daddy to her. "Don't call me a sugar daddy. I was just helping her because she didn't have money." "It doesn't matter what you call it. You admitted to having an affair and now you want a divorce. You'll have to pay me alimony for this." "Well, I guess I have no choice. It doesn't matter if Lily lied about her age. She's pregnant, and I need to take responsibility." "I agree, that's noble. But it doesn't change the fact that you had an affair. As for me being infertile, I've had tests, and I'm fine. I should be able to get pregnant without any problem. Usually, they don't recommend fertility tests for men, and I didn't want to pressure you, but have you ever thought about getting tested? Huh? She lied to you about her age and other things. Don't you think you should get a paternity test? What? Are you saying Lily betrayed me? Noah seemed unsure about trusting Lily, but she couldn't say anything because she was still shocked that I was his wife. I stepped forward and spoke clearly. I'm going to tell my sister what you did, and we'll report this to the company. I've put up with a lot, but I can't anymore. You complained about me behind my back and called me an annoying old lady. You're terrible at your job. You lied about your age on a dating app, and you caused too many problems. Even if you don't get fired, you won't have any support left. Lily's face turned even paler. If you understand, leave. This apartment is in my name, and when we divorce, you have no right to stay here. Noah, pale-faced, packed his bags and left. I hired a lawyer, sent divorce papers to Noah, and demanded compensation for the damages from both Noah and Lily. Lily's affair became a huge topic at work, since she made so many mistakes and caused so many issues. Her salary was cut, and she was moved to a distant office. Lily couldn't handle it and quit. She had worked hard to get the job, but she barely lasted a few months. It was all for nothing. Well, she got what she deserved. Lily had studied hard to leave the countryside and get into a good university, but once she got there, she became lazy. She used her looks to get other students to do her work while she skipped classes and partied. She still graduated, but she was lazy and useless at her job. Even with good grades and a degree from a good university, she wasn't good at her job. Of course, I told my sister everything. She was furious and brought Lily back to the countryside. Now, Lily has to help on the farm every day and uses almost all of her money to pay me back. She only gets a small allowance for herself. By the way, it turns out the father of Lily's child wasn't Noah. She had other men supporting her, but when she got pregnant, they all left. Noah was the only one who believed the baby was his and said they should be together, but once he found out the baby wasn't his, he left her too. My sister is now helping Lily raise her child, which is partly why she brought her back to the countryside. I hope Lily changes a little after becoming a mother. Noah is still working at the restaurant, but his life is tough. He's struggling to pay what he owes me, living alone and constantly worrying about his debt. As for me, I'm focused on my career. I keep my employees in check and work hard every day. My worries are gone, and I hope from now on, I can live a fulfilling life. Thank you for watching.
Alright, this is one of those few times. I post here because usually these problems aren't as bad and I can handle them on my own. This time, however, it's gonna be a little crazy. Let me start from the get-go. Basically, what happens in my family is that my husband Gail is very attached to his family, especially his parents. It's gone to the point where if they jump, he's not going to ask why. Instead, he's going to ask how high. Obviously, that level of dependence and trust can sometimes come back to bite you even when you don't realize it. That's what's happening with Gail. He doesn't realize how damaging his dependence is getting, and when I try to tell him about it, he just gets mad at me. The very main reason that all this happened, and the reason I'm posting this story, is because my husband has been spoiling them since the very beginning. I get wanting to take care of your parents. I do. If my parents were living near us, I'd like to take care of them as much as possible too. But I would not do it to the extent that Gail and I do. That's the limit that I understand we don't have to cross. But Gail, unfortunately, does not. My in-laws have been asking us for money. Since we've both got stable incomes, and it's not like my in-laws are not well off or anything like that. They don't necessarily need the money from us. They can support themselves and even afford certain luxuries, so they don't need to ask for money, but they still do. Initially, I was okay with it because I understood that they're Gail's parents, and I'd need to fit them into our lives as well, but over time I got a bit icky about it. We've sent them so much money over the past years that if we saved that amount, we'd be able to go abroad on a vacation twice. I told Gail that he should not spend all his money on them simply because, well, then there's nothing left for us to save. But he did not understand. He started arguing with me, telling me that we're living a comfortable and well-fed life. So why can't this spare some extra money? We have, and just give it to his parents. I tried to make him understand that it's not about not supporting them. It's about him not caring about supporting me. We would need money if we ever decided to have kids, and if we wanted to make a big purchase or anything like that. It looked like he understood my point, but he still was not willing to stop giving them money. That made me so angry that I almost left the house that night. My anger was fueled even more when I remembered how they treated me in the past. If they were nice and loving ones who treated me well and let me feel like I was actually a part of the family, maybe I'd be nicer to them. They were horrible to me. They never made me feel like I was a part of the family at all. And when I needed them to be there for me, they weren't. Someone Gail and I got married. We weren't that well off. I had just graduated, and it had not been that long since Gail started working as well. This meant that we didn't actually have enough money to invest in a house and buy it. I perfectly remember Gail and I going to my in-laws and having a proper discussion with them, telling them about everything we're going through and making them explain how hard it is. However, when we asked for some money to start the process, they immediately said, no. It's like they did not even take any time to think it through. Instead, they just gave us an hour-long lecture on how we're adults now, so we need to be responsible and take care of our savings and whatnot. They told us that we needed to work extra hard to achieve our dreams and every other crap they could possibly spit from their mouth. I was a bit frustrated at their response, but I decided not to say anything and just kept my thoughts to myself. It was heartbreaking to see them not helping out their own children, but if Gail was okay with it, then I thought I needed to be fine with it as well. But then they did it again a year and a half ago. I inherited a house from my mother. It was a beautiful house, but it needed a lot of work. Obviously, we did not have the money or the resources needed to make these changes. I mean, we had some of the money saved, but we needed a bit more than that, and so we decided to ask my in-laws again for some money. Just a little sum of money to help us get the house ready to live in, but they said no to that too. And instead, they told us to earn our money and stop asking them for money. Not just that, but they told me to sell the house and invest in something that's actually useful and not something that looks like crap. As soon as I heard that, there were fumes coming out of my ears. This house was very precious to me as something that was connected to my mother, and to hear my in-laws talking about it like it was trash was very hurtful. I did not express that to them because I thought I would look rude, but I should have. Maybe then they would not be as shameless as they are right now. I'll tell you guys exactly why they're shameless though. So basically, after they rejected us, I gathered money and worked my butt off to renovate the house. I made it look presentable, and I made it look amazing. It was hard, but once I started earning as well, things got a bit easier so I could manage it. Anyways, it had been a few months since I invited my in-laws for dinner for my mother-in-law's birthday. By that time, the house looked absolutely incredible. I made it as perfect as I could, and I was very proud of it. Moving on, the day they actually came over for dinner, I was expected to go pretty well because, well, usually, if it's not money related, the conversation stays pretty squabble-free. Obviously, with these people, there's not one moment where you're not discussing money. So they come over, and as soon as they enter the house, their eyes go wide. Internally, I'm smirking because I know they did not expect me to go this hard on the renovation. Wide-eyed. They're completing my house way too much. I mean, some compliments are fine, like, oh, you did a wonderful job, or oh, your house looks incredible. But there was so much more. Every part of the house they'd stop, inspect, and then just ask me how much it cost. Why would they ask that for some stuff? Yeah, I get curious about it, especially because they knew we did not have the money. It's not like they gave us the money either, so I'm sure they were curious as to how I managed to afford all this, but honestly, I found their questions a little rude. It just felt way too forced. Like they weren't actually interested in the job I did or how pretty I made it. Look, they were just interested in how much it cost, and I actually did not realize it back then, but after what happened during dinner, it all made complete sense to me. Dinner was chaotic, to say the least. It started out very decent. It was a good conversation going on, and it even had a nice flow to it. But then my mother-in-law started talking about dream vacations. First, she asked me what my dream vacation was and where I'd like to go the most. But when I answered her question, it felt like she wasn't really interested and was waiting for me to finish as soon as possible. I gave her what she wanted, of course, and I made my answer very short, just the name of the place, and then she got all excited all of a sudden. That's when I get a bit suspicious, because there's no way that she was that excited for me, and then she opened up about the real reason behind all the weird acts that they've been doing ever since they stepped into this house. They wanted us to help them build a vacation house after all the years of rejecting us every time we've asked him for financial help. They'd come to us and asked us to pay for the quote vacation house. They're not even poor or anything. Why do they need our help? Why can't they save up enough and get a house for themselves? They think that just because I've managed to get my house to look so gorgeous, we're some sort of rich couple now, I guess. But we're not. I asked them to explain it to me a bit more, just so I could have a better idea of what they need and why they're getting a vacation house and stuff. But the response shocked me. They want to get one just because they're bored with their lives and they want a house to be able to go to every other weekend. For some reason, they can't afford the house by themselves, and they told us that they know that we've got money saved on because this house looks like it costs a lot. At that point, I was aggravated, and so I told them we did not have that kind of money to waste. That was very wrong to say, because Gail looked at me like I murdered his parents in front of him. As soon as these words were out of my mouth, he glared at me and told me that anything that we spent on his parents' happiness was never a waste, and I needed to, quote, watch what I say, which is ridiculous because he knew I was right. A vacation house is not a necessity to have, and it's not like they're going to die if they don't get it. My father-in-law still works and they can save up and get one by themselves. They don't want to do that though. They want us to give them money so they can take the easy way out. Then I remembered that Gail is not an only child. He has an older brother as well, so why weren't they asking him for money? I brought that up because they were getting too defensive and looked like they were about to make a living hell for me. Apparently, Seb isn't as financially stable as us, so they don't want to burden him with this. Oh, I'm sorry, but I could not keep my mouth shut at that point, and I expressed what I was feeling, but I made sure I was not being disrespectful. Seb was earning as much as we were. He just had children to take care of, so most of its expenses were going towards that. However, I wanted to try it for kids as well. And if we kept giving my in-laws money, how would I save enough to take care of my children? The counter-argument we received was that we don't have children right now, which means we've got more money to spare than Seb and his family. And then they started emotionally blackmailing Gail because they knew that they would not be able to get through to me they started talking about how they were lonely and bored because both their sons had started their own families, which is why a vacation would benefit them really. Well, Gail fell into the trap because why wouldn't he? As soon as his parents get a little bit emotional, he does everything that's asked of him. I knew I could not give him in, but I didn't want my in-laws to know they've won us over. How I kept saying that the arguments were progressively getting worse and unstoppable. Well, this is the consequence of that. A week ago, Gail and I had one of our biggest fights. We've never fought this hard before, and it was actually a bit weird how aggressive he was. Obviously, there was no physical aggression. He wasn't raising his hand to me or anything, but his words hit much harder. He basically told me that $100,000 he's planning to give to his parents is not just mine, so he can do whatever he wants with it. He thinks that he was being nice by asking for my opinion and my permission before taking action on his own, but he doesn't need to do that anymore. The fight got worse when he actually gave the money to his parents, and he returned home from work one day and did not even bother mentioning anything to me. It wasn't until my mother-in-law called me to tell me that she got the money that I found out that he gave it away. I was enraged, obviously. We had not discussed giving the money away, and he knew I was not okay with the fact. Yet he was still going to go ahead and just give it away. He didn't even keep a single dollar for ourselves. The entire $100,000 he saved up over the years, he gave to his parents. Then, when I told him that he needed to get the money back, he told me to shut up and let him deal with his parents how he wanted. Even when I was factually arguing that we're a couple and we should decide on big financial decisions together, he wasn't having it. It seemed like he totally got tired of us constantly arguing because he threatened me with a divorce right in the middle of our argument. He suddenly screamed at me and told me if I tried stopping him from giving a share of the money to his parents, he was going to get a divorce and leave me all alone. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I've been with him through everything in his life, and now he was going to leave me because I was trying to put our family first instead of his parents. At that point, all I could ask him was if he did not care about what I wanted and how I wanted to build our life together, have children, and live a happy life. He cared for none of it, but instead, he wanted to give all this to his parents while I was suffering in the background. In a moment of anger, he walked out of the house and slammed the door behind him. And it's been a week since he's been home. I've tried texting him multiple times. I've called him so many times, and I've left more than a dozen voicemails. But he keeps ignoring them or leaving me on hold. Guys, I'm so hurt because I didn't think I'd ever lose Gail, especially over something as silly as this. I've contacted my in-laws, and it turned out that Gail had gone back to live with them for the past week. He hasn't been home once, and I'm so stressed and confused about what's going to happen and how I'm going to deal with everything. Update number 3. So a few more days into this mess, I decided that I could not keep myself trapped in this family forever, especially if they act as messed up as they are right now. I was not sure about my decision in the early days, but now, after waiting for Gail to come home for more than a week, I've decided that I needed to take action and set him straight. Well, if he wants a divorce, that's exactly what he's going to get. So I contacted my lawyer first thing that morning and let him know the situation. She let me know that I could not only divorce Gail, but also take him to court. After the entire meeting ended, I decided that I did not need this house anymore. The only thing it was doing now was reminding me of my husband and all the good and bad memories that we've had together. That's why I decided to sell the house and keep the money for myself. Gail could not even ask for this money legally because the house was in my name, given to me by my mother, and I could do anything I pleased with it, right? So I sold it. It brought me a lot of money, which helped make the court case much easier to process. So the next day, while I finalized the divorce papers and had them sent to Gail, I knew the exact time he received those papers because I got the most heated phone call one could ever get. He was talking about how I was being stupid, and it didn't matter because he was going to divorce me as well. And then he got to find out about me taking him to court, and he absolutely exploded. Obviously, No one wants to go there or anything, but I hung up on him midway because I've had enough of his anger now. Then the days of the court case came. I was feeling all kinds of jitters and I was nervous. What if it went wrong? What if I lose the money I've made from selling the house? All these kinds of questions were racing in my head. But I did not let them take control of me. I got dressed in a way that I said was confident, put my best smile on, and I reached the court doors. It was the final hearing of the divorce, and it went incredibly well. Not only did I get to keep all the money from the house, I also got $100 from Gail as alimony as a legal obligation. I was shocked. I did not expect to win more money from him, but it was worth it for all the damages he's done to me and to my mental health. I should accept this money with grace. The sour expression on their faces just added to my glee, and I knew that they thought that they could rob me of my money and my house, but they probably weren't expecting to lose everything themselves. It's been a few days since then, and life has been relatively peaceful. I did get a phone call from my mother-in-law, where she was bashing me for what I've done and told me I could never have a family of my own because I don't know how to take care of people, that I'm just incredibly selfish who only looks at her needs and not others. Apart from that, it's been okay. I got a new apartment for myself using the money I made selling the house, and now I can finally save up as much money as I want without having to worry about other people constantly asking for it. But let me know, guys, do you think I went too far by taking him to court? Let me know in the comments down below. I was a little surprised when I was reading the comment section of this one. Let me break down what some of the comments were saying. Some of them were actually coming up with the idea by saying, you know what, I don't really blame Gail. I mean, what's wrong with giving your parents $100,000 when you have $200,000? But there were other commenters basically saying, no, that's ridiculous. Like OP said, they've been helping his parents for years. They're trying to build their own house, and they need that money. So this is where the comments really split apart. They were saying they do not agree that OP should just sell the house, take the money because it's under her name. They thought that was disrespectful. But there were about 50 saying no, that was exactly what she needed to do. So guys, drop your comments down below. Let's discuss this one. My name is Mr. Reddit. I narrate stories every single day. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya. Thank you.
Geez, your mom only went to middle school and works part-time. Do you just care about money? When my mom told my future father-in-law she was a janitor, everyone laughed. He sneered, seriously? A cleaning lady? That's as low as it gets. It hurt me deep. They were making fun of my mom who raised me on her own. It was so mean. I couldn't imagine being related to them. Let's just forget this happened, I said coldly, trying to move on. My name's Emily Yale. I'm 26. I graduated from a public college with a teaching degree, and now I teach English at a public high school. I enjoy my life. Today, I'm going on a date with my boyfriend, John, on a weekday, something we haven't done in a while. We're going to a restaurant he picked. Sorry, I'm late. You've had a busy week, John said when he got there. You too. Thanks for all your hard work, I said. John, my age, finished medical school and is now a resident doctor. We met in college and have been dating for 5 years. He's really kind and genuine, almost too good for me. Sometimes when we're both stressed with exams, we'd argue, but we always make up and help each other. As I ate dessert, I noticed this restaurant was fancier than usual. Suddenly, John got serious. My residency's ending soon. Being a doctor is tough, but I want us to be together through it all. Emily, will you marry me? He showed me a ring. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at him. Yes, I'm so happy. We can always rely on each other, I said, my voice shaking as I accepted his proposal. I thought my mom would be happy for us, but she seemed hesitant. My mom, Linda, lost her husband when I was young and raised me by herself. My grandpa once suggested we live together, but she wanted just us two. I met my grandparents for the first time in elementary school because I got married against my parents' wishes. I was young and stubborn, so I didn't rely on them right away. My mom always says, I might have caused you to suffer because of that. But I never felt that way. She's always been positive, kind, and loving. She's the most important person in my life and who I want to be like. When John and I went to tell my mom about our engagement, she blessed us with all her heart. John said, "Thank you, I'm excited for our future." My mom was almost in tears, happy for us. I said, "We should also tell your parents." "Thank you. I didn't see my family much since boarding school and college, but they'll be happy. Make sure to introduce yourself properly to John's family. You're becoming part of their family," my mom said, fully supporting us. I heard John's family are all doctors. His dad owns a hospital and his mom stays at home. He also has a younger brother who's 8 years younger. I hope we get along, but meeting them makes me nervous. "Don't worry, I'll find us a place to live," John said. "Thanks, I'm nervous, but I'm excited too." I believed a bright future was ahead of us until that day, the meetup, 2 months later. We waited in a fancy restaurant's private room as John's parents and brother arrived a bit late. "Nice to meet you. This is my mom. My dad runs a clinic. Mom's a full-time housewife. And this is my brother, a high school senior." John introduced them. We introduced our families. John's doctor parents looked impressive, but his brother seemed more casual with messy hair and a disheveled uniform, glued to his phone. Then John said, "I want to marry her." His dad gently corrected him. "First, let's learn about her family. If we're becoming family, we should understand their background and character." His mom added, assessing us with serious eyes. "Where's your father today?" his dad asked. I've told John to say we're a single-parent household. Something's off. My dad passed away when I was young, so my mom raised me alone, I explained. His brother exaggeratedly twisted his face and said, "Seriously? Just one parent? Ridiculous." The one with the attitude crossing his legs was John's arrogant younger brother. "What's that supposed to mean? My mom raised me alone, and I'm thankful for it," I said, raising my voice. "Mind your manners and put away your phone," John scolded him, and his brother turned away angrily. "You're a high school teacher, right?" his mom asked me this time. "Yes, I teach English at a public high school," I replied. As soon as I spoke, his family all chimed in at once. "A teacher? None of us are teachers, and she's in humanities. Isn't she unsuitable for our son?" We wanted him to marry a doctor's daughter. A public high school teacher seems plain and poor. I'm in a totally different world. "I already have a recommendation for medical school," they said bluntly. John, shocked by their words, spoke up. "She's an amazing woman. She's dedicated to her job. Don't talk about her like that." Then his dad glanced at my mom. "We haven't agreed to their marriage yet. A single mother and a teacher. What about you, ma'am? Can we ask about your education and job?" My mom replied firmly, "I've done different jobs since my husband died. Right now, I work as a janitor at a hospital. I only finished middle school." Before my mom finished, his family started laughing. "Oh, she only went to middle school and does part-time work. Must have been very poor." His father dismissed my mother. "Seriously, even with just a high school diploma, you're in a tough spot." So now she's a cleaning lady. Lowest of the low, his younger brother sneered. "Your mom only finished middle school and works part-time." I couldn't even imagine such a life. Marrying into a family of doctors, I couldn't comprehend their attitude. Was this marriage just for money? His mother's dramatic frown delivered the final blow. "As I suspected, we can't approve this marriage," his father declared, as if it were final. How terrible. I was stunned, speechless. Insulting me was one thing, but mocking my mother who raised me alone was unforgivable. I couldn't be part of this family. Stopping my mother from standing, I stood up. "I understand how you all feel, so let's pretend this meeting never happened. Is that acceptable?" With a cold, emotionless face, I declared. After a moment of silence, his family exchanged glances and burst into laughter. "I thought you had something important to say. We're the ones calling off the engagement. Did you realize we were going to reject you and decided to end it first out of pride?" his parents said, smug. "Wait, that's not it." John couldn't stand his parents' behavior. "I'm sorry. I can't be part of this family. I'm really sorry for their rudeness." Seeing our serious conversation, His parents paused their laughter. Why are you apologizing? You should find a more suitable partner. Maybe another doctor or a wealthy woman, they said. I stopped John from saying more and asked, would it have been better if I were a rich heiress? Of course, even if you're not a doctor, being rich wouldn't be a problem. You could help our hospital, right, dear? That might even be better for us. His parents laughed, continuing their show. So, you're saying you'd pass up such an opportunity? I challenged. What do you mean? They looked confused. By marrying our son, you gain some wealth. Where would a janitor and a regular teacher get that kind of money? John sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. What's going on? You're acting strange, his dad said, oblivious. Did you even listen to their introductions? Does the name Yale not mean anything to you? John asked. What about it? Not worth remembering such a family, his dad replied. Yale, huh? His dad seemed to catch on. Right? My grandpa chairs Yale University, and she's his daughter. Yale Academy, that elite place with everything from kindergarten to university? It has a medical school and hospital. His dad's eyes widened. Yeah, that Yale. You've heard of it, right? I said, taking charge. No way. A Yale Academy daughter dropping out of middle school to become a janitor? That's impossible, his parents exclaimed. Exactly. Your lie will be found out right away. If you're feeling guilty, come up with a better lie, I advised them. My mom works as a janitor in hospitals and schools, right? I'm talking about the hospitals and grad schools at Yale. What? She's undercover as a janitor? That's fancy talk for spying, right? Her job is to check on the school while cleaning and report any problems. My grandpa asked her to do it. If you don't believe it, go check, John explained. What? What? My detailed explanation seemed to convince them. His parents started to panic. Why didn't you tell us this sooner? Yes, if we knew that, we would have. This is what happens when you don't listen to people, his parents admitted, feeling foolish. I was about to explain further when I was cut off. I was ready to answer any questions, but it was unfortunate. I couldn't forgive how they insulted my mom. I quietly responded, my mom dropped out of middle school due to poor health since childhood. She had a brother to carry on the family line, so my grandpa prioritized her health over education. After middle school, she moved to a country house for ongoing treatment and rest. There, she fell in love with my dad. She argued with my grandparents, who wanted her to marry into a suitable family and left home to marry. They didn't rely on her family at all. But when my dad died and she raised me alone, my grandparents suggested we come back. She didn't agree immediately. I was stubborn, she said. She felt guilty for leaving and then asking to return. Over time, they wanted to see their grandchild and their relationship improved. Changing her name back to Yale was for my sake. His brother was stunned. So I told him, it seems you've been recommended for medical school. Which university? What? John's brother was caught off guard by the sudden change in topic. Oh, so it's Vassar College's medical? Oh. His mother realized something as she said that. Vassar College is linked to Yale. If I mention today's events, your admission recommendation could be canceled, right? Hey, don't joke. Our son got in, and nothing can change that. We even pay extra to cover his grades. Canceling it now would be ridiculous. His dad slipped up, admitting to bribery. Both John and I said together, you went that far, Dad. No, it's not. His father was clearly flustered, his mom and brother turning pale beside him. Treating admissions so lightly, was it all about money? Did you bribe his teacher? I pressed. No, I already said. The president of Vassar College is my uncle. If I report this, he'll investigate thoroughly, I warned. What right do you have? You're so arrogant, his mom snapped, her face red with anger. I hold no authority here, but I was told I'd eventually work at Yale. I explained calmly. Say what now? His mother's tone softened. Oh, let's calm down. Let's forget what's happened. Your behavior will determine if I approve of this marriage. Is that fair? Yeah. Our son is also the clinic's heir. He needs our approval to marry. You want to marry John, right? His father was on board, and his brother added, just let them get married and don't cut me out. Faced with their selfishness, John exploded, I don't need your permission. I'm cutting ties with you all. What? His family was stunned. I always thought you were pretentious because we're doctors, but I never expected this at our first meeting with my partner. What are you saying? Fine, cut us off. Facing his speechless parents, he continued, I'm ashamed of how you treated her and her mom, and bribing for my brother's admission. I despise you. I'm marrying her and being happy. Stay out of our lives. With that, his parents were flustered. So, you're not taking over the clinic? If our other son doesn't get into medical school, there's no hair. He brushed off his parents. I'm not taking over. I've been asked to work as a surgeon after Yale. I'm considering that over working at your clinic. What? I don't care. Let him take over. Wait, we have patients counting on you. That's right. We'll be in trouble if you don't take over. Ignoring the chaos, he turned to my mom. I'm sorry. I want to cut ties with my family and build a home with your daughter. Please let us marry. His voice trembled a bit. You don't need to apologize. I didn't fall for you because you're a doctor. I fell in love with your kindness and sincerity. My mom, standing beside him, nodded. That's right. You're kind and respectable. Being a surgeon is amazing. I support your dreams and happiness. Thank you. I'd appreciate it. He continued to bow, and my mom smiled. His family watched in shock. Mom, let's go home. There's no point in staying. Agreed. We'll leave. If you need anything, contact us. My mom left Yale's legal advisor's business card as she left. 1 year has passed since then, and John and I are happily married, living together. He's been working diligently as a skilled surgeon at the hospital after graduating from Yale. Despite his busy schedule and lack of sleep, I'm glad to see his enthusiasm for his work. My grandfather, who admires him, hopes he'll join our university's hospital in the future. As for his family, the truth about my brother-in-law's bribery came out, and the teacher who took the money was punished. His admission was revoked, and he's now trying to get into med school through regular channels. But it's tough given his attitude. His parents' clinic struggled because of the director's arrogance. Patients left when they realized John wouldn't take over, and most of the staff quit due to his mom's behavior. They faced social backlash and eventually closed the clinic. As for me, I've started studying educational administration at my grandfather's suggestion. He hopes I'll contribute to managing our institutions. With guidance from my uncle and seniors, I'm learning and growing. My mom said, it's great to see our family grow closer. I'm truly happy to hear that. I want to give back more in the future. Though my days are busy, I'm grateful for the support from my mom and husband. You're not our family. Go home now. On our way to a camping trip with my husband Joseph and his parents, we stopped at a rest area off the highway. As I stepped out of the RV, Joseph abruptly hurled those hurtful words at me. What? I exclaimed, bewildered. This wasn't the Joseph I knew, the caring husband. The shock on my face seemed to amuse him and his parents as they exchanged smirks, and Joseph started to drive the RV away. This couldn't be real. They wouldn't leave me stranded in the middle of nowhere. Frantically, I dialed my phone, only to be met with a stunning rebuke from my mother-in-law. Did you honestly believe you were coming with us? How audacious of you. Don't bother calling again. I was looking forward to this trip. But we're on a one-way highway. You can't just turn back. And besides, you're not family. You're just my daughter-in-law. Know your place. We're going to enjoy ourselves without you. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief as the RV disappeared into the distance. The words "you're not family" pierced me to the core, aching with intensity. It was all so cruel. They had me prepare everything, only to leave me behind. Overwhelmed with bitterness and heartache, I had no option but to call a taxi and return home, feeling utterly helpless. Allison, a 31-year-old woman, had been married to her husband Joseph for 2 years. Despite her initial hesitation to live with his parents, Joseph bought a house for them, a short distance away from his parents' place. While it was a relief not to live under the same roof, Allison still faced challenges. Joseph's parents, though free-spirited, often imposed tasks on her, like sudden shopping trips or cleaning their kitchen. Despite feeling harassed at times, Joseph always apologized for his parents' behavior, urging her to endure. His parents were particular about appearances, treating Allison well in front of others. She felt pressured not to speak ill of them, fearing she'd be seen as the villain. Despite her efforts to understand them better, being left behind by Joseph during a planned camping trip was a shock she struggled to recover from. The idea of camping arose during a visit to his parents, where Allison stumbled upon a lantern in the storage room. Curious, she asked about it, sparking a conversation about camping. Excited by Allison's mention of her father's camping enthusiasm and RV ownership, Joseph suggested they go on a family camping trip. With newfound excitement, he urged Allison to rent an RV for their upcoming adventure. "My father cherishes his RV and takes care of it whenever he has free time. I'm not sure if he would lend it to us." "Now it's your job to convince him. You better beg him to lend it to us, got it?" Joseph urged when I hesitated at the sudden request. "It's our first time camping and we don't know what we need, so it would be safer to borrow your dad's RV. Besides, I want to please my parents with a fun camping trip. Please, Allison." His plea left me little choice but to agree. I rushed to my father's place and explained the situation. To my surprise, he readily agreed. "Really? Is it okay?" I asked in disbelief. "Of course. I thought you would refuse because you always polish and take care of it in your spare time. If it's for you, Allison, I'm happy to lend it, and I'm touched by your desire to please Joseph's parents. So take this whole set of camping gear so you can enjoy your first camping trip. If you're a beginner, this and this would be good," my father said, selecting easy-to-use equipment for beginners while explaining various things. I was thrilled to see how much my father cared for me, and it warmed my heart deeply. Perhaps this camping trip could serve as a bridge to bring me closer to my in-laws. "All right, I'll work hard to prepare," I assured my father gratefully. I went ahead and reserved a campground equipped with power facilities, along with a nearby hot spring for added relaxation. When I shared the news with my husband and in-laws, they were overjoyed. "We're so lucky to have you, Allison. I'm so excited. I can't wait." "I'm glad you're happy," Joseph exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. On the day of our trip, I climbed into the RV driven by Joseph, brimming with excitement. As we hit the highway, heading towards the campground, my anticipation soared. But soon enough, my mother-in-law's demanding nature resurfaced. "Joseph, I'm thirsty. Can we stop at the interchange on our way?" she requested. "Mom, I brought some drinks. You can pick one from here," Joseph replied, trying to accommodate her needs. None of them really appealed to me. "As my daughter-in-law, you should know my tastes," my mother-in-law remarked, her tone dripping with disappointment. I'm sorry," I stammered, feeling the weight of her words. Stepping out of the car at the interchange to buy her the requested Dieter pepper, I was blindsided by my husband's sudden coldness. "Allison, you're not a part of our family, so go home now," he uttered, his tone devoid of warmth or understanding. "Excuse me? What suddenly got into you?" I gasped, unable to comprehend his words. This wasn't the Joseph I knew. He wasn't the one who typically showed me kindness and consideration. My shock only seemed to amuse them as they laughed at my expense, and the RV began to move again, leaving me stranded. They left me here in the middle of nowhere. Is this some kind of joke? Panic set in as I dialed a number, hoping for some semblance of understanding, only to receive a response from my mother-in-law that shook me to my core. "You thought you could really come with us? What a brazen woman you are. Not a part of our family. Be aware of that. Bye. We'll enjoy a good family time without you." My mother-in-law's words echoed in my mind as the call abruptly ended. I stood there, stunned and speechless. How could they treat you like this? They had me prepare everything, only to exclude me at the last moment. What was Joseph thinking? Bitterness and sorrow washed over me, but I couldn't dwell on these feelings. Summoning all my strength, I called a taxi and returned home, feeling utterly betrayed. The following day, my husband and in-laws returned from their camping trip, excitedly recounting their adventures. Not a single word of apology passed their lips for leaving me behind. As I pressed them for answers, their response left me dumbfounded. "We did it to discipline you as my wife." "That's right, Allison. You never understand your place as our daughter-in-law. But there's no need to abandon me on the highway for that. We had to go this far because you wouldn't get it otherwise." My mother-in-law's words cut through me like a knife. "We need to properly discipline this failure of a wife before we start living together," my father-in-law added, his tone laced with disdain. The mention of living together sent a chill down my spine. Discussions were happening behind my back, and I was completely unaware. What do you mean by living together? I haven't heard anything about this, I protested, my voice trembling with fear and anger. My parents' place is getting old and is at its limit. I've bought a house where we can invite Dad and Mom to live with us. From next year, we'll be living together, so I'm going to be stricter with you. Be prepared, Joseph declared, his words hitting me like a ton of bricks. Was this his true intention all along? Deciding such a major thing without consulting me at all. I was stunned, feeling utterly betrayed. My anger was overshadowed by a sense of powerlessness as I realized my voice meant nothing to them. And to add insult to injury, after borrowing the RV, they didn't even bother to refill the gas or thank my father. Allison, why are you just standing around? Hurry up and return the RV to your dad. After cleaning the interior, wash the car, then return it to your father. We don't want to be seen as thoughtless, Joseph instructed, his words dripping with insincerity. As I surveyed the interior cluttered with trash, I felt a surge of disappointment. Not only had they ignored me, but they had also disrespected my father's kindness. It was unforgivable. After meticulously cleaning and washing the RV and filling up the gas tank, I returned it to my father. Upon seeing me, he greeted me with a warm smile. How was it? Did you enjoy the trip? I wasn't considered as their family, so I didn't go, I replied, recounting the events of being abandoned at the highway interchange and my husband's sudden decision to live with his parents without consulting me. My father's smile vanished, replaced by an expression of fury. I'll get even for you, Allison. We will not let this slide. I won't let them have their way. Allison, we're getting back at them, he vowed, his determination evident. And in that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. With my father's wisdom guiding me, I returned to my in-laws' house where my husband and his parents were still basking in the excitement of the previous day's events. Keeping my emotions carefully hidden behind a light smile, I addressed them in a gentle tone. There's an even more amazing place than where we went yesterday. The autumn leaves are stunning right now. How about we go on a full-scale camping trip instead of staying in an RV? We could pitch a tent, enjoy a barbecue, and soak in the breathtaking scenery. At night, the sky is filled with stars. It's truly a hidden gem that I don't want to share with anyone else. Can I come too to fulfill my role as your wife? That sounds wonderful. It's going to be so much fun. Since it's in a secluded area, I'll drive, my husband eagerly agreed. As my wife and our daughter-in-law, of course, you should join us. My in-laws chimed in with equal enthusiasm. We decided to go camping again the following weekend. As always, they left all the preparation to me, their demands for discipline growing more incessant each day. But I had my secret plan in motion, meticulously arranging for my revenge. And when the date of our trip arrived, I borrowed an RV from my father, drove to a remote campsite, and watched with satisfaction as my husband and in-laws thrilled at the adventure ahead. Wow, it's like a private site, they exclaimed, eagerly exploring the new environment. We'll go for a walk and enjoy the scenery, Allison. Stow our tent, understood. Enjoy your walk, my husband instructed before they set off, leaving me to prepare the camp. Come on, let's go quickly, I urged, bidding them farewell and then setting to work on the campsite. About 30 minutes later, my husband called in a panic. What, you're lost. I can't find your dad's RV. I'm on my way home with it. What? What do you mean? I asked, bewildered. Don't worry, was his cryptic reply. Unbeknownst to them, I had left only the bare minimum for them to enjoy a real camping experience, a plan devised by my father. He had suggested they experience wild camping, where they would have to fend for themselves, akin to living on a deserted island rather than a convenient camping site with all amenities. You better set up your tent early and look for wood to start your fire. I know you guys have no lighter, so you'll have to start the fire yourself. I've left the pot so you can at least cook rice, my father had advised, ensuring they faced the challenges of nature head-on. You left us behind. You were the ones who said that I, as a wife, wasn't part of the family and shouldn't go camping with you guys. So I took you up to the campsite and tearfully went home. That's what you wanted to do, right? I stated calmly, hitting them with my logic. My husband was momentarily silenced by my words. Enjoy camping with just your family, I added before hanging up. But my husband's rage erupted, and he began yelling at me. "Don't be ridiculous. If you don't come back now, I'll get a divorce from you." "All right, let's get divorced. You'll regret saying that." Being abandoned on the highway, finding my father's cherished RV filled with trash. "I've had enough of living with your parents who do nothing but disrespect me, and you're the ones who will regret it. Stupid woman," I retorted, utterly disgusted by his behavior. He abruptly hung up, leaving me seething with anger. Although I was nearby, I lost all will to go pick them up. After a while, I received another call from my husband. His tone had completely changed, and I could hear his confusion and trembling voice over the phone. I can't set up the tent no matter what. It's starting to rain and my parents are getting angry at me. It's getting cold too. What should I do? It's cold, regretting already." "Why don't you look up how to set up a tent on YouTube?" I suggested, trying to offer a solution. "Forget the tent. My father pulled it too hard and ripped it apart, Allison. You've had your fun. Now fix your attitude and come pick us up," my husband snapped, his frustration evident. "I'm not coming. If you walk for about an hour, you'll reach a broad road. If you're not going to camp, then come down here with your stuff," I replied firmly, refusing to bend to his demands. "What? Just because I'm asking you nicely doesn't mean you can get all high and mighty," he retorted, revealing his true nature. Any lingering feelings I had for him had completely cooled. All I could do was sigh. "Screw this. I'm going to dump all this useless stuff. Just wait till we get home," he muttered angrily before ending the call. "Someone owns that place. It's private property. If you dump anything here, you'll be sued for illegal dumping, you know. There's a sign there that clearly states no littering," I warned, trying to reason with my husband. "I don't care," he replied, his tone firm and unyielding. It was clear he didn't believe I was serious about the divorce. I had to make him understand the gravity of the situation. "After the divorce, I'll be demanding compensation for the emotional distress from all the harassment you've done to me," I asserted, my voice steady and resolute. "What? The divorce? Is it? I'm serious," he stammered, finally realizing the seriousness of my words. Our conversation from the time I was left behind on the highway is recorded on my dad's RV's dash cam, so you can't deny it. Not just that, I've also recorded the conversations when you were harassing me afterwards, I stated firmly, laying out the evidence. "Let's calm down. We don't have any savings because we've been paying our mortgage. If you leave, I won't have anyone to cook and clean for us, which will be a problem." "You should think before you speak," my husband pleaded, trying to appeal to practical concerns. "I'm not your maid. If you don't agree to the divorce, I'll take it to court. It's going to become a big deal, and everyone in the family will know," I asserted, refusing to be swayed by his attempts to guilt-trip me. My husband, usually so conscious of others' judgment, fell silent, seemingly at a loss for words. In the background, I could hear his parents fussing, but their opinions no longer held any weight for me. After that, my husband attempted to say something with a preface of "you know," but then the call abruptly cut off. Soon after, I started receiving multiple calls from my in-laws, but I ignored them completely. After a while, the calls stopped ringing, indicating their phones must have died from a lack of battery. My father's revenge plan was a resounding success. As I made my way home, I picked up the divorce papers, filled them out, and left them on the table before returning to the comforting embrace of my childhood home, where my kind father awaited me. Meanwhile, my husband and in-laws took an inexplicably long 3 hours to descend the mountain that would normally take only 1 hour. "That's why you should have used Google Maps instead of bothering me with calls." "How foolish," I remarked to my husband, who arrived at my parents' house in a desperate attempt to salvage our relationship. His anger was palpable. "Allison, get out here now. I'll teach you a lesson. If you have something to say, talk to my father. He's pretty upset, so it might not end well for you." But my imposing father stood firm at the entrance, unleashing a tirade against my husband and shutting him down. Moreover, they left their tent and camping gear in the mountains, leading to a lawsuit for illegal dumping filed by the owner of the mountain. The person who filed the lawsuit, none other than my father, who had inherited the land from my grandfather. Security cameras installed due to recurring trespassing and dumping incidents made it clear who was responsible for the mess. As for the punishment, after finalizing our divorce, I demanded and received $1 million each from my husband and in-laws for the emotional distress they caused me. Unable to pay off their mortgage, my husband's house was foreclosed, and he now lives with his parents in their leaky house, leading a modest life as a family of 3. But there's no use crying over spilled milk. I returned to the company I used to work at before getting married, regaining the lifestyle that suits me. Next month, I plan to go camping with my parents, and sure, it will be a blast. After all the turmoil, I'm finally reclaiming my happiness and looking forward to brighter days ahead. It was our wedding anniversary, and my husband, daughter, and I were gathered around the table, savoring a delicious meal together. After we finished eating, my husband stood up with a small, excited smile. "I picked up a special wine for tonight," he said, his voice warm with anticipation. "Hope you'll enjoy it." "Oh, that's so thoughtful of you," I responded, smiling back. "Let me open it. Is the wine opener in the kitchen?" He got up and headed toward the kitchen, his actions almost rehearsed. Moments later, he returned with a glass of wine, handing it to me with a flourish. "Here you go. Give it a try." "Thank you," I said, raising the glass. "Cheers to us." As soon as I took a sip of the wine, I choked and gasped for air. "I can't breathe," I cried out, collapsing to the floor and clutching my throat. Our 7-year-old daughter, witnessing the panic, burst into tears. "Daddy, something's wrong with Mommy. We need to call an ambulance," she shouted, her voice trembling with fear. My husband, however, remained eerily silent and unmoved, merely watching me in distress. Our daughter clung to my clothes, sobbing uncontrollably. Once my movements had ceased, he coldly pushed her aside and, without a word, walked out of the house. As soon as the front door clicked shut, I quickly sat up, reflecting on the reality of my situation. My name is Mary. I'm 34 years old, and I've been married. I'm a composer with a bit of a name, known for providing songs to singers and groups. One of my earlier tracks became a theme song for a TV series, and the royalties have afforded me a comfortable lifestyle. I met my husband, Kenny, at a friend's wedding after party. He was in sales for a liquor company and enjoyed drinking as much as I did. Our mutual love for alcohol brought us together. Kenny, with his knack for recklessness and lack of foresight, was once charming in his spontaneity. We began dating, started going out for drinks on weekends, and eventually got married a few years later. Soon after, we were blessed with a daughter named Holly, completing our family of 3. After we got married, I quickly noticed that Kenny wasn't very involved with household chores or childcare. Even with Holly's arrival, he continued his carefree lifestyle, seemingly oblivious to the demands of my busy life. One evening, as Holly cried loudly in her crib, Kenny called out from the kitchen. "Hey Mary, Holly's crying. I'm cooking. Can you take care of her?" I replied, "It's a hassle. She might be more comfortable with you." Kenny avoided taking responsibility with excuses, remaining fixated on his phone. With a resigned sigh, I turned off the stove and went to tend to Holly. "Kenny, I've asked this many times, but can you please help more around the house and with Holly? Managing everything on my own is overwhelming." "Why should I? I'm already balancing work and household chores. Holly is our child, not just mine." Kenny's response was a smile. "Why not just hire a housekeeper or babysitter?" "That's not the issue," I said, frustrated. "I don't want to spend recklessly, especially with Holly's future in mind. We agreed to maintain a middle-class lifestyle, didn't we?" "Did we?" he retorted, clearly uninterested in the discussion. "Anyway, I'm always exhausted from work. You handle the house and everything." Despite numerous attempts to have a proper conversation, I never received a satisfactory response. Eventually, I had no choice but to manage both household chores and care for Holly on my own. As the years passed, Holly grew quickly, and before we knew it, she was 5 years old and about to start elementary school. To celebrate this milestone, my in-laws planned a dinner party. Their home is about an hour's drive away, and we've always enjoyed a good relationship with them. My father-in-law is a strict man who values honesty but has always been kind to me, while my mother-in-law is relaxed and charming. At the dinner table, Holly proudly displayed her new backpack and lunch bag. "Thank you, Grandpa and Grandma," she said, beaming. My in-laws watched with joy, clearly delighted by her excitement. "Mary, Holly's growth is a testament to your hard work," my father-in-law said as he poured me a drink, causing me to blush slightly. "Holly's such a good girl. She helps me out a lot," I replied, smiling. "Well, she's my daughter," Kenny said with pride, and I chose to let it pass without comment. "I heard you're working on the theme song for the next movie, Mary," my mother-in-law added. "Yes, the song is ready. The movie is scheduled for release next month," I confirmed. "Kenny, you have a wonderful wife. You must be very proud," my father-in-law remarked. However, Kenny's expression remained unchanged, and he didn't seem particularly pleased. "But she earns so much, yet I don't get to enjoy any of the luxuries that come with it," Kenny said, surprising both my in-laws and me. "What?" we all exclaimed, taken aback by his comment. Kenny continued, "People call her a prominent composer, so I expected a better lifestyle. She never gives me any pocket money and refuses to enhance our quality of life. She's stubborn and stingy." "Hold on, Kenny," my mother-in-law interjected. "You both live in a beautiful apartment. Didn't Mary buy that?" "Yes," my father-in-law agreed. "And isn't it a man's role to support the family rather than rely on Mary? Have you considered working to increase your own income?" Yeah, got it," Kenny grumbled, and that was the end of the conversation. I felt a mix of irritation towards him and gratitude for my in-laws' support. Soon after, Kenny started coming home late, claiming it was due to work. At first, I wasn't too concerned, given that his sales job often required overtime. But then, he began spending even his days off away from home and was always glued to his phone when he was there. His interactions with Holly and me grew increasingly distant. One Sunday, Holly had planned a special outing with Kenny. She gently shook him awake. "Dad, it's already 9 o'clock. Remember, today was supposed to be our outing day." At Holly's words, Kenny suddenly sat up and without saying a word roughly pushed her aside. Holly, taken aback and with tears welling up in her eyes, stumbled back. "What's going on?" I demanded, gathering Holly in my arms and raising my voice. Kenny, now fully awake, looked clearly irritated. "I have other things to do today," he snapped. "I needed to sleep a bit longer. Did you forget your promise to Holly? And how could you push our daughter like that?" I demanded, my frustration clear. "Be quiet. You're both in the way. Get out of the bedroom now," Kenny shouted, forcefully ushering Holly and me out before getting ready with meticulous care and leaving the house. His behavior was completely unforgivable, especially towards Holly. As I comforted Holly, my doubts about Kenny deepened. A month later, one evening after a particularly exhausting day at work, I collapsed into bed after tucking Holly in. In the middle of the night, feeling thirsty, I went to the kitchen for a drink. As I stood there, I heard Kenny's cheerful voice coming from the living room. It sounded like he was on a call with someone. I strained to hear what Kenny was saying, my curiosity piqued. Suddenly, a phrase that stopped me in my tracks reached my ears. "Beth, you're the only one I love." I was stunned. This was clearly a conversation with another woman. Infidelity. Just as I was about to confront him, I overheard another disturbing statement. "Also, start the plan for the wedding anniversary in 3 days. Everything will go as planned." Kenny continued discussing the details of this plan over the phone. I was chilled by the implications. What's going on? Kenny is not only cheating but also scheming something with her. I quickly slipped my recording phone back into my pocket and retreated to the bedroom without being noticed. When Kenny returned later, he fell into a deep sleep beside me, but I couldn't close my eyes at all. The next morning, after Kenny left for work, I took some time to collect my thoughts in our room. Initially overwhelmed by sadness, my feelings quickly shifted to anger. I know this myself, I resolved. I went to an electronics store and purchased security cameras, installing them throughout the house. 3 days later, on our wedding anniversary, Kenny had been unusually affectionate since he woke up. "Mary, today is a special day," he said warmly. "Yes, it is," I replied. "I'm glad you remembered," he said, smiling. "Of course I remembered," Kenny said with a smile. "I know I've been coming home late from work lately, and I'm sorry about that, but today, I'll be home early. Let's celebrate our wedding anniversary." "I'm looking forward to it," I replied. "I've prepared a special meal." "Mary, I truly love you," he added. Feigning ignorance, I simply nodded as Kenny headed off to work. Once he was gone, I calmly continued my preparations. At around 6 p.m., Kenny returned home. I had arranged a lavish dinner and was ready to greet him. "How was your day, Kenny?" I asked. "Dad, you came home early today," Holly exclaimed. Holly was thrilled to see Kenny home earlier than usual, her excitement evident. Watching her joy while knowing what was to come weighed heavily on my heart. I felt a pang of sorrow as I looked at her. "I'm sorry, Holly," I whispered. Kenny looked around the table, taking in the feast I had prepared. "Wow, this looks amazing. Shall we dig in?" The three of us gathered around the table and enjoyed the meal together. As we finished, Kenny reached for something he had set aside. "I bought a special wine for our anniversary. I think you'll really like it." "Thank you. That's very thoughtful of you. I'll go ahead and open it. Is the wine opener in the kitchen?" He spoke in a rehearsed tone as if reading from a script and headed to the kitchen. Moments later, he returned, pouring the wine into my glass. "Here, give it a try." "Thank you." "Cheers," I said, trying to remain composed. As soon as I took a sip, a wave of distress hit me. "I can't breathe," I gasped, clutching my throat and collapsing. Our 5-year-old daughter, horrified, cried out, "Daddy, something's wrong with Mommy. Call an ambulance." Kenny remained silent, watching me in agony while our daughter, her face streaked with tears, desperately tugged at his clothes. When I finally stopped moving, Kenny pushed our daughter aside and left without a word. As soon as I heard the front door slam, I quickly got up. I had anticipated this outcome. Holly, seeing my calmness, looked stunned, her face streaked with tears and snot. I held her gently. "I'm so sorry, Holly. It was a terrible prank, a really cruel one. I never meant to frighten you." "A prank? I thought I lost you," she sobbed, clinging to me. In the shadows, a group of onlookers watched with bewildered expressions. Kenny came home late that night. "Is Holly asleep already?" Kenny asked as he walked in, his voice tinged with annoyance. I remained hidden in the darkened living room. "Welcome back, Kenny," I said, flipping on the light. His face went pale, clearly shocked by my sudden appearance. "Why are you still here?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. Surprised by my calm demeanor, I replied, watching his shock deepen. "It was all an act. I overheard your plan." The conversation I accidentally heard from Kenny was chilling. "You'll handle the poison, right? It needs to be colorless, odorless, and tasteless. She loves wine, so it'll be easy to mix in. Afterward, we'll stage it as a suicide due to work stress. Once she's out of the picture, we'll inherit everything. The insurance, the royalties, and even this apartment. It'll be the start of our new life." When Kenny realized I knew about his plan, his face flushed with anger. "You eavesdropped. That's despicable," he shouted. "Even if it was an accident, discussing such things at home was foolish." "That's how I gained the upper hand," I replied calmly. Kenny's rage only intensified as he glared at me. He then grabbed my bag and pulled out a small, unfamiliar bottle. It was clearly not one of my things. I guess it was intended to frame me for a supposed suicide. "Now that you know, I have no choice but to make you drink this." "There's still time to stop," I pleaded, trying to find a way to escape. Just then, a loud voice echoed through the room. "Kenny, stop." "Dad." Both my in-laws appeared in the doorway, their expressions stern. "Why are you two here?" Kenny demanded, bewildered. "We've been here since this evening at Mary's request," my father-in-law explained, pointing to a surveillance camera mounted in the corner. "We were monitoring the feed from another room. We saw everything from when you poured the contents of that bottle into a glass to when you hid it in Mary's bag." Kenny's face went pale as he realized the camera had captured his every move and that my in-laws had been watching the footage in real time. Staring at the camera, he looked utterly stunned. "That's not all. I recorded the entire conversation," I said, pulling out my phone and playing the audio. The incriminating evidence made my in-laws wince and Kenny's face drained of color. "With this recording, the camera footage, and the remaining wine as evidence, it will be easy to report you to the police." Kenny immediately dropped to his knees in front of his parents. "Dad, Mom, please help me. I don't want to be labeled a criminal." "You don't want your son to be arrested, do you?" "You idiot," my father-in-law said coldly, delivering a sharp blow to Kenny's face that sent him sprawling. My mother-in-law looked on with clear disdain. "It's not just what you did to Mary. You didn't even consider Holly," my father-in-law said, his voice full of condemnation. "You made her cry, and I can't forgive you for that. I can't even think of you as our son. We've already reported you to the police. They should be here soon. Accept your fate," my father-in-law added. Seeing that he was abandoned, a tearful Kenny stumbled toward me. "Don't come any closer," I said firmly. "Mary, please forgive me," Kenny pleaded. "If you don't press charges, I won't be arrested. I only love you. Let's start over as a family with Holly." "Do you really expect me to believe that after everything you've done, after trying to take my life? There's no way I can ever forgive you. I'm so sorry. Please help me. You and your mistress both," Kenny begged. "I will never forgive you. Accept your punishment." Before he could say more, the sound of approaching police sirens grew louder. After the incident, Kenny and his mistress were convicted in court and sentenced to prison. Kenny and I finalized our divorce through our lawyers. His parents provided me with a substantial sum as compensation for the distress their son had caused. It turned out that Kenny's mistress, a university student studying pharmacology, had used her access to steal poison from the university, intending to use her knowledge to harm me. I also sought compensation from her, which her parents promptly paid. I have no intention of ever forgiving her. While Kenny is serving his prison sentence, neither I nor his parents have visited him. They've made it clear they'll support him once he's released on parole, arranging for him to settle and work far from here. I sincerely hope Kenny never crosses paths with me or our daughter, Holly, again. Holly and I have moved to a quiet, peaceful place. I told her, "Your dad is working far away now." When she replied, "He doesn't have to come back," I couldn't help but smile, though it was tinged with bitterness. From now on, I'm focused on leading a calm and positive life, cherishing the future we're building together.
Finally, free from any more baggage. Today marks the beginning of our life together with my parents at my house. However, as soon as my parents passed away, my husband, who had demolished our family home, dropped a bombshell on me. Standing in front of the now non-existent house, he declared, "What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind too? Come to our house with the inheritance. Quick." His words left me dumbfounded, and I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ah, I see. That's what this was all about. Perplexed, my husband, Howard, and my in-laws looked at me incredulously. "What? Why are you laughing?" I revealed the truth to them. My name is Deborah Jackson. I was born into an ordinary salaried worker family. I married Howard at 29, raised 2 children, and now, at 55, I expected a quiet life with my husband. But life took an unexpected turn. I recounted the challenges of caring for my ailing parents, particularly my mother's battle with cancer. Despite my efforts, my husband's reaction to living with my sick mother was unexpected and less than supportive. I suggested living with my mother for her sake, but Howard was reluctant. His complaints about meals, cleaning, and laundry were hurtful. Despite the challenges, we moved to my family home to care for my mother, even though Howard's initial attitude remained unchanged. As time passed, my mother's health deteriorated, leading to her hospitalization and eventual passing. Despite the emotional turmoil, Howard's lack of support during the funeral preparations left me deeply disappointed. In times like these, one wishes for their spouse's support. However, Howard was off to the side with his parents, not helping with the funeral preparations. Even during the funeral, he remained at the back of the relatives section. "Howard, I wish you would sit in the family area." I couldn't help but wish for the support that never came. When I suggested that Howard should sit with me in the family area during my mother's funeral, he responded, "No, I'm fine here. I'm not a blood relative after all." His mother, who was listening, interjected, "He's your husband, but not your mother's son, right? Howard is my son, so he's an outsider. An outsider, that's right. Howard's parents are just us. Deborah should sit in the family area alone." Even his parents echoed the sentiment, stating that Howard should not be in the family area. While seating arrangements for family members may vary by region, in our area, it's customary for sons-in-law to sit in the family area. Predictably, with Howard not in the family area, distant relatives started whispering and speculating about our relationship. After the funeral, We returned home with my brother's family, children, Howard, and his parents. Despite their insensitive remarks, I thanked Howard's parents for coming and served them coffee. However, their callousness reached new heights when they casually remarked about the condolence money being tough on them, implying relief at the end of the financial burden with my mother's passing. Stunned by their words, I forced a smile and left the room. Overhearing Howard and his parents' conversation, I learned more about their true feelings. Howard complained about living with someone else, and his parents joined in mocking me. It wasn't the first time. They had always been disrespectful, even during our marriage. Reflecting on their lack of concern during my father's funeral and mother's death, I questioned Howard's behavior as a person. I realized that I had been overly considerate of him, feeling guilty for imposing the living arrangement. Angry and resentful, I silently listened to their laughter and chatter. Later, in a conversation between Howard and his parents, they openly disapproved of my defiance regarding my mother's belongings. When they tried to take my mother's bag, I firmly refused, stating my intention to distribute her keepsakes among family members later. This led to a heated argument, with Howard and his parents leaving angrily, labeling me an outsider. Despite explaining the situation to everyone, Howard didn't return home for some time. When he finally did, he surprised me by showing concern and suggesting a trip for me and the kids, even providing travel vouchers. Though unexpected, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions, including gratitude and confusion, at this unexpected gesture from Howard. "I wonder if your father felt guilty," I said with a laugh as I decided to gratefully accept the travel vouchers from Howard. "Well, I'll beat off then." "Yeah, take your time. Since you're at it, stay over at the kids' places," Howard suggested. "I can't be away that long," I replied. "Just go. I'll relax at my parents' house. Don't worry about me," Howard said, sending me off with those words. Julia was happy to have me over. So before the trip, I visited Julia's and then Luke's homes, having been unable to visit while caring for my mother. I helped out a bit by making and freezing some meals for them. "Mom, you don't get to relax at all, but thank you. It really helps." They both expressed gratitude for my home-cooked meals. This was all thanks to Howard's suggestion. Then came the long-awaited trip, and I spent a relaxing time at the hotel with my children. It seemed to heal much of the fatigue and sorrow from caregiving and losing my parents. I was away for nearly a week, but both kids returned to their homes with bright smiles. "That was fun. We should thank Dad once in a while," Julia suggested. "Really? Once in a while? But I wonder if he's up to something," I laughed, half-jokingly. "Don't say that. Your father must have had his reasons," Julia replied. I laughed as well, planning to share the memories with Howard and start afresh in our married life. However, upon arriving home, I was at a loss for words. "What's going on? The house is..." I looked around in confusion, checking my location. Despite being a familiar place, our family home was gone. Then Howard appeared from nowhere, with his parents behind him, smirking at my dumbfounded expression. "Howard, what's the meaning of this?" I asked. Howard, like his parents, replied with an eerie smile. "Finally, the baggage is gone. From today, we'll be living with my parents at my house." "What are you talking about?" I retorted calmly to Howard's arrogant statement. Then Howard spoke. "Lost your mind? Your family home has been demolished. Come to our house with the inheritance. Already, everything you inherited belongs to Howard." I realized what had happened. The disappearance of my house was Howard's doing, all for the sake of inheritance. Despite being overwhelmed with frustration and sadness, I couldn't let Howard have his way. "No way," I thought to myself. I burst into laughter at their smirking faces. "What? Why are you laughing? What a strange woman. Has she gone mad?" My mother-in-law looked at me as if I were something eerie. I faced them and spoke up. "Don't you guys know?" "Know what?" I then said to Howard, "First of all, I didn't inherit a single penny, so there's no inheritance." I started laughing again after saying this. Maybe they thought they had become rich through inheritance, Their wild imaginations and actions were simply laughable to me. What do you mean? Explain yourself? Howard demanded an explanation, but I remained silent. I thought there was no need to enlighten them before that. I'm not going to live with strangers. If you want to live together, do it alone. Ignoring Howard's question and rejecting his initial proposition, my mother-in-law flared up in anger. You helped with your parents' household, but you won't do ours. You know why I did that, right? I agreed to live together, didn't I? I said we didn't need to live together, but you chose to do so because you didn't want to do housework. My rebuttal left Howard and my mother-in-law biting their lips in frustration and demolishing my family home on your own. There are things you can and can't do. I yelled at them on the spot, then left the scene. Behind me, Howard's voice called out, "Where are you going?" However, I didn't turn back. I had to secure a place to sleep for the night, and I didn't want to see Howard's face. I immediately consulted a lawyer. It couldn't be that easy to demolish a house. The house was still in my mother's name. When I wondered which company had taken the job, an unbelievable truth came to light. Howard and my father-in-law had directly demolished the house themselves. They had meticulously prepared, enlisting the help of acquaintances from my father-in-law's demolition company and renting heavy machinery. Moreover, they had given me the travel vouchers to drive me out. The realization of being utterly deceived brought tears to my eyes and filled me with frustration. Is there any way to punish the three of them? I asked the lawyer through tears, and he smiled kindly. Your husband, who demolished the house registered under your mother's name without permission, can be charged with criminal damage and sued for compensation. Let's start by demanding a proper apology from your husband and his parents. I nodded at his words, and the lawyer promptly started the proceedings. A few days later, an irate call came from Howard. What's this letter of demand about? Oh, you received it. Since you destroyed our important house, you'll have to compensate for it. Compensate. I told you we were moving into the family home. I demolished an unused house for you. You should be grateful, not demanding compensation. Just bring your inheritance and come back home. Howard arrogantly insisted. Grateful for being demolished? Really? And about the inheritance coming home? There's none to bring since I didn't inherit anything. I shouted back over the phone. Howard fell silent, seemingly stunned by my outburst. The reason I laughed when the house was demolished was precisely this. I had a whole year to spend with my mother. It was obvious we would have discussed the inheritance. Then I said, I don't need anything. Give it all to my brother. Thus, all cash and securities were inherited by my brother. He said that I should get the house since he lived far away and couldn't manage it. If I wasn't going to live there, it could be rented out to someone else. That was the plan for me to inherit the house anyway. Either you and your father restore the family home to its original state or pay the amount written there. This amount, I'm being kind enough to suggest a settlement. If you can't pay, I'll file a police report and sue you, I spoke firmly. Sorry, I didn't think you'd be so angry. Of course, Howard replied. I'm angry. Howard began making excuses. He thought that as long as the family home was there, he couldn't live with his parents, especially since his father had always wanted to live with us. My father-in-law was fond of Luke and seemed to have wanted to live with him. He had refused to live together back then because it would have made commuting difficult, but his parents seemed to think I was the one opposed to it. So it turns out that Howard had convinced his parents to agree to this plan by demolishing my family home and making them believe I would move in with the inheritance. But even knowing this now, there's no way I can forgive it. So please forgive me. I didn't mean any harm. Dad is remorseful too. If he's truly remorseful, then he'll agree to the settlement. I said this and hung up the phone. Howard kept calling me and sending messages to apologize. If you're sorry, then hurry up and transfer the money. I pushed Howard away with these words. I knew our family home couldn't be restored, but there was no other way to alleviate these unbearable feelings. Afterward, I stayed at Julia's house. My brother's family and my children knew about this, Even though my brother must have been angry about our family home being demolished without his consent, he said, "I won't interfere, but I'll lend a hand. Do what you think is right, Deborah." Everyone condemned Howard's actions and supported me. A month passed without any payment for the damages or compensation. During that time, there was no contact from Howard. I couldn't keep relying on Julia's hospitality forever. I wanted to receive the money soon and at least establish a stable living situation. But contrary to my wishes, something unbelievable happened. It was revealed by a comment from Julia. "This apron looks a lot like Grandma's," she muttered while showing me her smartphone screen. I was shocked when I saw the screen. It was a product page on a flea market app. The item Julia thought resembled my mother's apron was a unique piece I had made for my mother. "What? This is Grandma's apron. I made it, so there's no mistake, really," Julia said and hurriedly checked other pages. The seller seemed to have registered recently, with no transactions or ratings yet. As I checked the content of the nearly 30 items listed, I was shocked to find that they all belonged to my mother. I immediately realized it must be Howard's doing. No one else but Howard, who had demolished the house, could have taken my mother's belongings. I called Howard right away. "What's this about the app, Howard?" Howard responded, sounding annoyed, thinking he was playing dumb. I'd angrily confronted him. "Don't play dumb. You're selling Mom's belongings, aren't you? Cancel the listings right now." Howard sounded panicked as he replied, "What? No, it's not me. Who else would do such a thing? I'm coming over to get everything back." I hung up and immediately went to Howard's parents' house with Julia. Upon arriving at Howard's parents' house, I immediately called out to Howard. He came out to meet us at the entrance, where I confronted him. "I don't know anything about it," Howard said. "Dad, tell the truth." Julia, supporting me, also pressed Howard for answers. He was visibly flustered. While this was happening, Howard's parents, perhaps realizing we were there, showed up too. "Oh, Julia, you're here?" She smiled happily upon seeing Julia. Julia, clearly upset, spoke to her grandmother. "Tell Dad to tell the truth. The truth. It seems like Dad is selling the stuff Grandma passed away." With hearing this, my mother-in-law laughed. Howard looked troubled and kept repeating, "It's not me." Then my mother-in-law spoke loudly. "Howard's selling them? That can't be true. But because I'm the one selling them." I felt the blood drain from my face at her words. Howard must have known. He looked at his mother with a "this is bad" expression. Julia was stunned, but my mother-in-law seemed cheerful. "What did you say? It's quite a task, you know. Packaging has to be done carefully, and the photos need to be taken well." She talked about the app as if it was a fun hobby, not realizing she was selling stolen items. I struggled to contain my anger. "Cancel the listing. That's not something Grandma can just sell." Julia, red-faced and teary-eyed, appealed to her grandmother, but my mother-in-law seemed displeased. "What's the big deal? I found a fun hobby. I use what I can, and the rest makes a nice little income. It's good for preventing dementia after all. I'm the only grandma left. And Julia, you want me to stay healthy and live long, right?" My mother-in-law said this nonchalantly. It was clear she wouldn't listen to our pleas. But if talking won't work, we'll have to take action. "Let's go home, Julia." "But it's okay." I left the house, dragging Julia with me. And so, I rushed to the police station. I had not planned to file a report about the house being demolished, but theft was a different matter altogether. When I reported the theft and unauthorized sale of my mother's belongings to the police, they promptly took action. The flea market app company cooperated, and my mother-in-law's account was suspended. This ensured that no more items would be sold. On my way back from the police station, I called Howard. "I had your mother's account suspended. You knew about this, didn't you? You're complicit." "No, I've filed a police report. Please cooperate with the investigation." Howard became frantic at my words. "What? We're family, aren't we? Please withdraw it. Strangers, right? I still haven't received any compensation or damages for the house being demolished. and I see no remorse from you." I was angry, and Howard was at a loss for words. But I am not heartless. Despite everything, I had shared a life with Howard for a long time. Sighing, I realized that there might still be a long road ahead to resolve all these issues. I said, "I'll wait for the money, but I won't forgive the theft. Everything must be returned. And Howard, your father looked very ill. Has he been to the hospital?" "What? I'm not heartless, so I'm just letting you know." I said this and hung up the phone. I had seen my father-in-law earlier, and he hadn't spoken much. He was much thinner than when I last saw him a few months ago, and his face was pasty and unnaturally dark. It was clear that he was not in good health, but I doubted that the family had noticed. My mother-in-law was nonchalantly trying to sell stolen items, and Howard was only bold towards me. That parent and child simply lacked any sense of consideration for others. The next day, my father-in-law called me. I thought he might thank me, but it was the exact opposite. "You're treating me like a sick person, planning to dump me in a hospital to get rid of me, huh? I have to protect Howard and your mother from you. I'm not going to any hospital," he scolded. I was concerned for him, yet this was how he responded. "I apologize if it was out of line. I was just concerned, I'm not weak and short-lived like your parents. Don't patronize me." I was angry at his words, but a few days later, he apparently felt unwell and went to the hospital. The diagnosis was terminal cancer. Howard called me in a panic. "Dad has terminal cancer. What should I do?" I snorted. "That's none of my concern. Remember what you said when I suggested the hospital. You said you're not weak and short-lived like my parents. Deal with it yourself. How can you be so heartless?" Who's the heartless one? Did you ever say a kind word when my mother was sick? Reflect on your own actions. I said this and ended the call. As expected, my father-in-law passed away not long after. As a human being, I didn't want to harbor negative feelings towards someone who had passed, but recalling all that had been done and said, I couldn't shed a single tear. After the funeral, a will was found. Despite his claims of not being short-lived, my father-in-law had been thoroughly prepared. The house is to be inherited by my grandson Luke. The rest of my estate is to be divided between my wife and eldest son, it stated. I was surprised to see Luke's name. My father-in-law had always favored Luke, expressing a desire to live with him. Now he must have wanted Luke to live in the house even after his passing. For Luke, this was an unwelcome burden. Renounce the inheritance. You don't want that house, do you? I told Luke, but he was actually pleased to inherit the house. Inheriting the house would only mean paying inheritance taxes, with no real benefit for Luke. However, if he was happy with it, it wasn't my place to say anything. As per his grandfather's will, Luke inherited the house. My mother-in-law was delighted and paid the inheritance tax. He's our heir, after all, she said. Well, that wasn't wrong. I felt a bit down, feeling like Luke was taken from me. But then something unbelievable happened. Come to our house, responding to Howard's message, I immediately went to his parents' house. There, like me once stood, my mother-in-law and Howard, frozen in front of their house. On the property, there were heavy machines, trucks with the demolition company's name, and workers all demolishing the house. What's going on? It's my house. I can do whatever I want with it, right? Luke, who appeared out of nowhere, seemed pleased watching the house being demolished. Luke, what are you doing? Stop it right now. Even if I stop now, we can't live there anyway, Mom. Luke, what have you done? My mother-in-law and Howard pleaded with Luke, but he just laughed. Have you forgotten what Grandpa and Dad did to Mom, Luke? Grandma, you were horrible to Mom too, right? Did you apologize? Luke, his smile gone, glared sharply at his mother and Howard. They fell to their knees as the machines continued to loudly demolish the house. I felt relieved seeing the scene. Later, Howard, having finally received the inheritance, paid the compensation and damages. It seemed that Luke had recovered the stolen items my mother-in-law took from my mother, and they were safely returned to me. "Mom, you've got me and Julia," Luke said, and I finally shed tears of relief. Howard and his mother lost their house and were left with no money, now living again in company housing. Howard and I had moved out of the company housing, and now Howard, along with his mother, had returned, becoming the talk of the town. A wife of Howard's colleague, with whom I am on good terms, contacted me, and I explained everything honestly. They'll likely live uncomfortably in the company housing now, but it's their own doing. Furthermore, with Howard's retirement, the two will need to save up for their future living arrangements. I might occasionally ask friends for updates on their situation, just for a story to share. I continue to stay at Julia's house, but Luke is now planning to get married and build a house. The land from his parents' house sold for a decent amount, surprisingly making the demolished house useful. "Mom, come live with us." Luke even invited me to live with them. His soon-to-be wife welcomed the idea warmly. I couldn't impose on Julia forever, so I gratefully accepted Luke's offer. I resolved to be a different kind of mother-in-law, hoping to live happily with my new family. Now that the troublesome situation has passed, we can relax and enjoy ourselves. He whispered these words to his niece's ear. The cause of the trouble was none other than his daughter. I had to leave home abruptly for a business trip. Despite my concerns about being away from my daughter for several days, John reassured me and bid me farewell, urging me to go in peace. My daughter and John usually spent quality time together, so I felt at ease leaving her in his care. However, recently, my daughter's behavior had taken a peculiar turn. In hindsight, I should have delved deeper into these feelings. "Mommy, don't go to work." My daughter clung to my leg, reluctant to let go. Unfortunately, I failed to recognize her desperate plea for help. Feeling like a failure as a mother, little did I know that John would lock my daughter in the storage room and embark on a trip with his niece. Forgiving John for the irreversible harm he caused to my daughter and niece is something I can never do. My name is Sherry. I married John the same year I became pregnant. Our daughter, Samantha, is now 5 years old. Our paths crossed through a common friend's introduction, a rather ordinary occurrence at the time. John, who had a fondness for children, worked at a toy manufacturing company, while I had just been chosen for a work project. Despite being engrossed in our respective careers, marriage was not on our minds. However, upon discovering my pregnancy with Samantha, everything changed. Having the baby meant taking a maternity leave and facing potential sidelining from the project. Witnessing similar situations at my workplace, I felt disheartened about my professional future. Yet John consoled me, expressing his willingness to quit his job and become a full-time stay-at-home dad. He had taken his current job with the hope that our future kids would play with the toys he helped create. John had already played a role in developing several products, some of which were already on the market. His dream was for me to fulfill my potential. These words prompted me to decide to have our daughter. I explained the situation to my company and returned to work 3 months after giving birth. Despite a slight gap, I managed to stay on the project, gaining valuable experience. Returning to work so soon after childbirth was challenging, but the thought of John and Samantha waiting at home fueled my determination. Currently leading a newly launched project, I strive to leave work on time by working remotely during weekdays. Although weekends, work, and business trips are sometimes inevitable, my daughter remains supportive, encouraging me with strong words. The concept of a full-time stay-at-home dad was not fully understood by society. But as a family, we harmonized our roles, leading to a happy life. One day, my sister-in-law discussed her divorce with us. Her husband, 10 years her senior, had frequent clashes due to differing opinions. The final straw was when he raised his hand against her. The divorce brought relief to my sister-in-law, who no longer had to witness her daughter Lily cry. Lily, an 11-year-old, had experienced the violence firsthand, prompting the decision to divorce. John, with his usual sense of humor, offered support, jokingly saying, "If you ever need anything, just say the word. I'm always home." Although it brought laughter, we nodded in agreement with John's sentiment. His words played a crucial role when John decided to quit his job and become a full-time stay-at-home dad. It's not about being a man or a woman these days. Whoever can do it should. Without my sister-in-law's support, we might not have maintained a good relationship with our in-laws. Our happiness owes part of its existence to her. Expressing gratitude, she mentioned considering a move to our neighborhood. We welcomed the idea, ensuring her that it wouldn't be a bother. Facing the need to leave the rental apartment shared with her ex-husband, she pondered returning to her in-laws' house an hour away. However, this would complicate her commute, and Lily would have to change schools. Fortunately, our house was within Lily's school district. They found a vacant apartment nearby and decided to move in. Suggesting that we look after Lily after school until her mother finished work, John and I agreed. Despite my sister-in-law's initial concerns about being overprotective, our proximity allowed us to keep a close eye on Lily, making John's role vital in the process. With Lily in our care during her mother's working hours, we began a new chapter in our family life. Living nearby, my daughter and her cousin quickly adapted to the routine. Initially, everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, my daughter's sudden resistance to being apart from me raised questions. Accustomed to seeing me off to work from a young age, I assumed she was comfortable with the routine. Was she feeling lonely, or was there another source of anxiety? Puzzled by her behavior, I attempted reassurance. "Mommy's just going to work. I'll be back tonight." Despite my attempts, my daughter clung tighter, revealing her inner turmoil. Concerned, I discussed the situation with John, who optimistically suggested that perhaps something happened at preschool. Assuring me that Lily's presence would provide comfort, John believed they might share secrets and alleviate any concerns my daughter had. Hoping this was the case, I refrained from pressing my daughter for answers. My daughter and Lily formed a close bond, with Lily treating her like a little sister. Observing their camaraderie, I believed my daughter's behavior was a passing phase. As my workload approached a lull, I planned to take leave and spend quality time with my daughter soon. However, unexpectedly, a business trip arose, requiring my absence for 5 days. Despite concerns, John's reassuring words encouraged me to proceed with the trip. Packed and ready, I left home 2 days later, with Lily visiting at the time. John, my daughter, and Lily saw me off with smiles. Little did I know that, at that very moment, events were unfolding at home beyond my expectations. John, exhibiting signs of departure, raised anxious questions from Lily. "Isn't Samantha coming with us?" John, to ease Lily's worries, fabricated a story about Samantha joining me on the business trip upon my return. Convinced by the tale, Lily accepted the explanation, and John directed my daughter to find a non-existent item in the storage room before my return. Samantha, believing her father's words, ventured into the storage room. Unbeknownst to her, John closed the door from the outside. Oblivious to the unfolding situation, my daughter did not notice the door being shut. John, muttering about the nuisance being gone, left with Lily for their trip, unknowingly leaving my daughter trapped in the storage room. Upon John's return 4 days later, he cheerfully chatted with a saddened Lily. Blissfully unaware of the events in his absence, John was shocked when he saw the storage shed and remembered he had left his daughter behind. Panicking, Lily rushed to the shed, where an unidentifiable liquid seeped out from under the door. John, attempting to stop Lily, confessed the truth about leaving Samantha behind. Lily, in shock, tried to open the shed door, only to be halted by John. The revelation left her devastated. The realization that Samantha was left in the shed, contrary to what John had assured her, prompted Lily to blame him. John, trembling and admitting his mistake, faced Lily's accusations. Witnessing this, I finally spoke up, questioning John's actions. My voice, cold and filled with anger, sent chills down my spine. Even my daughter, standing beside me, mirrored the intense emotions. John, turning around to face us, was frozen in shock. Sherry, contrary to John's astonishment, Lily burst into tears upon seeing Samantha. Hugging Samantha tightly, Lily expressed relief that she was safe. Samantha, avoiding eye contact with John, reciprocated Lily's embrace. I couldn't help but wonder about the emotional toll these events had taken on the innocent children. I stood protectively in front of my daughter Samantha and niece Lily, yet John showed faint concern. "I'm glad you're safe," he muttered towards Samantha. "Glad she's safe after you left her behind." "What are you saying now?" "Samantha said she wanted to be with you." "And why are you here, Sherry? Weren't you on a business trip? You were supposed to return tomorrow." "Oh, so you thought you'd be back before I got home. Could it be that you often leave Samantha like this when I'm away?" John fell silent at my words. His silence was more affirming than anything else. I've already heard the story from Samantha. I'll be hearing it from Lily as well. Turning to Lily, who was still embracing Samantha, she met my gaze firmly and nodded as if she had made a decision. The fact that I was able to rescue my daughter Samantha was a stroke of sheer luck. The thought of what could have happened if my business trip dates hadn't changed sends shivers down my spine. On the day I was supposed to leave, I indeed boarded the Amtrak. However, I received a sudden notification that the trip was canceled, so I got off the train mid-journey and returned home. Since the trip was called off, I could return home directly, arriving earlier than my usual time. Finally, I would have a chance to talk with Samantha. I took a taxi from the station, rushing home. As I got out of the taxi and approached the front door, I heard a voice calling, "Mommy." Thinking Samantha had seen me and was running towards me, I turned towards the voice, only to be shocked. Samantha's voice was coming from inside the storage shed. "Samantha?" In a panic, I'd opened the shed door to find my daughter there, drenched in sweat and sobbing uncontrollably. At her feet lay the burst remnants of a water-filled bouncy ball I had given her. This toy was developed by John when he was still working at the toy manufacturer. I had given it to Samantha, hoping to cheer her up when she first started showing signs of distress. Apparently, she panicked when she realized the door was shut, either throwing or stepping on the ball, causing it to burst. The liquid seeping out of the shed was from this ruptured bouncy ball. The floor was also scattered with Samantha's old clothes. "What happened? Why are you in here?" I hugged my crying daughter and asked her. What she told me then ignited a fury in me, the likes of which I had never felt before in my life. "Samantha said you asked her to look for my jewelry. She's deeply shocked both from being left behind and being locked in." "Locked in?" The door wasn't locked. I thought she would come out on her own. Being suddenly shut in is frightening even for adults. It's not surprising she panicked and couldn't open it. And I've heard about the usual situation. Now I finally understand why Samantha started acting out. My husband would have noticed the cause. After all, he was the cause of it. After we started looking after Lily, John began to favor her, neglecting Samantha. My daughter felt increasingly lonely as John paid attention only to Lily. But Samantha, caring for me and my busy schedule, could only express her feelings in such a way. It seems she also knew Lily was troubled by John's behavior. The photo of them whispering might have been taken while they were discussing this. Samantha really wanted to talk to me about Lily and hoped I could help in some way. However, Samantha didn't have the right words to accurately convey this. Unsure of how to express it to me, Samantha's words to me were hesitant. Yet she cared deeply for Lily, despite feeling lonely herself. What a kind-hearted child she is. After hearing from Samantha, I immediately called John, but he didn't answer. No matter how many times I called, usually he would call back right away, and it was unusual for him not to answer. Something was wrong. Believing this, I reached out to my sister-in-law. During this conversation, I learned a shocking fact. John had told her he was going on a trip with Samantha and Lily. John had contacted my sister-in-law as soon as he found out about my business trip. Sherry is going on a long business trip. During that time, I thought of taking Samantha and Lily on a trip because Samantha might feel lonely. What do you think? My sister-in-law was also busy with work and felt guilty for not being able to spend much time with Lily. John lied that Samantha and Lily wanted to go to a theme park, and my sister-in-law agreed, thinking it would be good for Lily. Of course, I hadn't heard anything about this plan from John. Hearing this, I felt as if the blood had drained from my face. Could John have been planning to leave Samantha alone at home during this trip? I informed my sister-in-law that Samantha was actually at home. When I mentioned that I couldn't reach John, she said she would try calling him herself, and we ended the call. I thought something was off and checked around the house, and I was shocked. There were lots of prepared meals in the fridge, and the water heater for the bath was left on. Could it be that he prepared all this so Samantha could stay alone? That is, John had planned to leave our 5-year-old daughter alone for 4 days with just these arrangements. My sister-in-law managed to reach John, who was apparently at the theme park with Lily, and casually said, "I'll have to hang up. Our turn for the attraction is coming." She also received pictures of Lily alone at the park, confirming Lily's safety. Angry yet relieved about Lily's safety, my sister-in-law and I decided to wait for John and Lily's return. John, perhaps as an alibi, had sent me a picture of Samantha and Lily, which must have been taken previously at our house. My sister-in-law received photos of Lily playing at the theme park. There was even a fake story of the two having fun together to pretend for it. And so John, believing he had fooled us, returned home in high spirits, having completely forgotten about the daughter he left behind. Why did my husband want to go on a trip with only his niece so desperately? Why John wanted to go on a trip only with Lily was beyond understanding. His affection for his niece was one thing, but his actions were abnormal. I wasn't the only one who thought so. Really? What were you thinking? Leaving your own daughter behind to go on a trip with your niece? That's abnormal, sis. Why are you here? I've heard everything from Cher. My sister-in-law burst in out of breath, likely having run here straight from work. Seeing her, Lily left Samantha and ran to her aunt. "Mom, Lily, I'm sorry." Then, for the first time, Lily told us everything about what my husband had done. As soon as we started looking after Lily, John began to pay attention only to her. According to what Samantha told me, it appeared so to Samantha. But in reality, it was more distressing for Lily. John had an unusual obsession with taking photos of Lily. At first, Lily agreed to John's request for photos, believing they were to be sent to her mother, and she smiled for the camera. However, over time, John's behavior began to escalate. He started making specific demands for poses, and Lily began to feel uncomfortable. But when Lily once refused and said no, John threatened her, saying he would tell her mother, making it seem like he was blaming Lily for not complying. "Lily is a naughty girl for not listening. Maybe I should tell your mom that we can't look after you anymore. She would surely be troubled then." Manipulating Lily's desire not to upset her mom, John continued to take her pictures, and eventually he took her on a trip, just the two of them. I really didn't want to go on the trip. It was creepy when he held my hand. "Hey, Lily, that's not true, right? You used to be happy with me, asking me to pick you up." Hearing this, my sister-in-law yelled, "How old was she, you're talking?" and hugged Lily tightly again. Lily, like Samantha, had been enduring John's behavior, not wanting to worry her aunt, and John had misunderstood this as Lily being fond of him. My sister-in-law tearfully apologized to Lily for not sensing the danger and agreeing to the trip so casually. She regretted her complacency for always having John look after Lily. "I'm sorry, Lily. If only I had been more careful." Lily shook her head in her mother's arms, said in a trembling voice that she never wanted to see John again. John began to panic pathetically at this. "Don't say that, Lily. I just wanted to show you affection. Stay away from Lily from now on." But then my sister-in-law demanded he delete the photos and snatched his phone from him. In his panicked state, however, upon seeing the photo folder, she was lost for words. There was an abnormal amount of photos of Lily saved. Lily's expressions in the photos seemed like forced smiles, but it was clear she was frightened. In retrospect, all the photos John sent never had Lily looking directly at the camera. John must have noticed the change in Lily's expressions too. That's why John only sent photos where Lily's expressions weren't clear, yet he let his desires run wild and took Lily away. Disgusting. I felt nauseated by John's abnormal behavior. My sister-in-law holding the phone tightly seemed frozen in place. We both shielded our daughters behind us, confronting John. There was no way I could forgive him for leaving Samantha behind, and I didn't want him near our daughters ever again. All feelings of affection had vanished in an instant. It's not like that. Listen to me. I love Lily, and of course, I love Samantha too. John continued to make excuses, only further frightening Samantha and Lily. I presented him with the divorce papers I had prepared during his trip, gathered our belongings, took Samantha, and left the house. I couldn't bear to share the same air with him for another moment. My sister-in-law and Lily followed us out. All that followed was my husband's sad screams. Afterward, I took my sister-in-law and Lily to their parents' house and informed them about John's behavior. When I mentioned leaving him with the divorce papers, my in-laws promised to handle everything from there. They assured us they would prevent John from approaching us again. Lily finally seemed to find some peace upon hearing their words. My sister-in-law and Lily decided to stay with my in-laws for the time being, planning to sort out work and school later. Though it likely meant Lily would have to change schools, we couldn't discount the possibility of John lurking around her school route. Samantha and I decided to return to my parents' home too. During John's trip, I had been managing work, household chores, and childcare alone. Thankfully, Samantha was a resilient child, and I felt confident that we could manage well on our own. Living without John, just the two of us seemed entirely feasible. Those hellish 4 days indeed contributed to my newfound confidence. For a while, we'll live at my parents' house, grateful for their kindness. But I plan to move closer to my workplace before Samantha starts elementary school. We started our new lives, but John was still stuck in the past. Thanks to my in-laws, I was able to finalize the divorce from John without ever having to see him. But he continued to call afterward and even showed up at my parents' house, despite being cut off by my in-laws from any contact with me, my daughter, and the residents of his parents' home. John pathetically tried to seek reconciliation. I can't imagine a life without Sher and Samantha. His words only instilled fear in me. I asked my parents to contact the police, who came and took away John, who was screaming at our doorstep. He was served a restraining order by the police and finally seemed to understand he was alone. All this destruction was his doing, and it was too late for regrets. I wondered how John, having been a stay-at-home dad, planned to live since then, but that was no longer my concern. Samantha had been down for a while after the incident, but she's finally starting to smile again. Though divorced from John, we still keep in touch with my sister-in-law and Lily, and their smiles are returning too, to overwrite the traumatic memories of the theme park with Lily. We are planning a trip there, just the four of us. I'm looking forward to creating many happy memories for Samantha and Lily.
Dee is retiring, so to celebrate, I'm taking our parents to Germany today. I'm using your platinum card for the trip and plan to have a great time with it. This is going to be an amazing trip. What are you talking about? Exactly what I said. No, I don't understand what you mean by exactly what I said. Please explain. We need to hurry. Okay, we'll go soon. Sorry, I have to leave now. I'll hear the details when I get back. Just one thing. Does the credit card work? Huh? My unemployed husband Jeremy took my credit card to take our parents on a trip. I've tolerated a lot from Jeremy, but this seems like the perfect chance to teach him a lesson. When he comes back from the trip, he'll have some big regrets. I'm Maria. a 35-year-old company employee. After graduating from a top university, I got a job at a major company and have been doing well there. Even though I'm only 35, I earn enough to support Jeremy, who doesn't work, and a child if we had one. But we don't have kids yet, though we're thinking about it soon. With a good job and income, I should be happy in my married life, but I'm not. The idea of having a child is just a possibility, but Jeremy not working is real. I'm not hungry for dinner because I ate snacks. That's fine, but what about your job search? I didn't go for an interview today. I just stayed home looking at job websites. Jeremy quit his job a year ago and has been job hunting since. Actually, he's been working part-time but doesn't stay in any job for long. He starts a job, quits soon after, takes a break, and then looks for another part-time job. You're looking at part-time jobs again, aren't you? I'm looking at both full-time and part-time. Why don't you stop looking for part-time jobs and focus on finding a full-time position? I know, but everything has its own timing. I wish Jeremy would find a steady job, but he can't be pushed too hard. He quit his last job because he had a conflict with his boss over work policies. That boss was known for being difficult. Jeremy stood up to him as the office representative with support from his colleagues. But when the situation got worse, his colleagues sided with the boss, not Jeremy. Because of that, Jeremy lost the boss's approval, felt betrayed by his colleagues, and found it hard to stay, so he left the company. Jeremy, dinner's ready. Can you bring it here? After quitting his job, Jeremy became reclusive and stayed in his room. After about 3 weeks, he started coming out and helping with household chores. All the dishes, really? Thanks. Then it's all yours. Yeah, I've got nothing but time, Jeremy said with a smile, but it didn't seem very genuine. After another 3 weeks, he started looking for jobs again. I have an interview today. Is it your top choice? Yeah, I'm going to get this job and start over. I'm rooting for you. Do your best. A month after quitting, Jeremy started job hunting seriously, but after another month, he still hadn't found a job. Why am I always getting rejected? Damn it, it's all my old company's fault. Don't get frustrated. You'll find something good. Of course I'm frustrated. I didn't do anything wrong. Jeremy might not be entirely blameless, but what happened at his last job wasn't completely his fault either. Still, quitting because of interpersonal issues doesn't look good to potential employers. It feels like I can't do anything right anymore. That's not true. You have an interview tomorrow. Let's work on your resume. It's pointless. I'm not going tomorrow. The constant rejections wore Jeremy down, but after a while, he became defiant. One day, I came home to find torn-up resumes on the living room floor. Knowing the interview didn't go well, I chose my words carefully. Can you throw that trash in the bin? I'm done. Done with what? Job hunting. We can live on your income, right? I don't need to work. True, we could live on my income alone. Some people don't work and do a great job as full-time homemakers, but that's not Jeremy's situation. He's just avoiding dealing with the tough realities. I understand his reluctance after the bad experience at his last job and the unsuccessful job hunt, but we need to face this issue directly. I decided to be patient with Jeremy for now. Jeremy, you still haven't found a job. What's your plan? I've worked hard before. This is just an extended break. I'm not just resting. I'm studying for the future. That's good to hear. Since Jeremy quit his job, his parents, Linda and Brandon, started visiting us more often. They were probably worried about him. Hearing that Jeremy was preparing for his next job seemed to ease their concerns, but it was a lie. The beer will run out today. Can you pick some up on your way home? It's running out again. You drink too much. Try to cut down a bit. Fine, I won't ask you again. I'll buy it myself. Jeremy wasn't studying or job hunting. Instead, he spent his days watching TV and drinking beer. He probably didn't want others to know he was unemployed. I didn't want to hurt Jeremy by telling my in-laws the truth, so I decided to keep quiet about his excuses. But after over 5 months without job hunting, I decided it was time to address it. Jeremy, maybe it's time to start job hunting. You seem more settled now. What? It's been less than half a year since the problems at my last job. You want me to work again so soon after that? I just think the break has been a bit long. Stop nagging. You don't understand my situation because your job is going well. I have my own struggles, you know. Everyone has work problems and relationship issues. We all try to solve them. Let's work through this together. I get it. I'll look for a job. Jeremy walked out in the middle of our conversation. It seemed my words had hurt him. but him agreeing to look for a job felt like a positive step. I decided to wait until he was in a better mood to apologize. I got a job because of your nagging. That's great. Where? At a nearby supermarket. So, you'll need to learn and work hard, right? It's just part-time. No need to work too hard. Part-time or not, a job is a job. Is that a problem? I wanted to say something to Jeremy, but maybe starting a little work could help him get back on track. I decided to observe and see how it goes. I'm home. Jeremy, you're back. How's the job? I quit the supermarket part-time job. Why? It hasn't been that long. A college student there was being bossy, telling me to always put the vegetable boxes at the bottom in storage. It felt like harassment. That student was probably just showing you how to do the job. In many workplaces, even a college student can be a senior. Jeremy kept finding new jobs but couldn't stick with any of them. It's been a year, and he still hasn't managed to keep a job for long. Jeremy, what job are you doing now? I'm working part-time at a pub now. I've never worked in food and beverage before, but it's interesting. I think I've finally found my calling. Really? That's great, but isn't the pay from a part-time restaurant job kind of low? That's fine. I'm currently apprenticing and aiming to go independent. So you plan to own your own place someday? Exactly. The income is small now, but I'm working hard for that goal. Then take this. Treat yourself to something nice for once. Jeremy continued to put on a good front in front of his parents, but it was all lies. He quit the pub job just 4 days after this conversation and even took an allowance from his parents. I couldn't help but feel disappointed in my husband, so I decided it was time to be firmer. Hey Jeremy, we need to talk later. I'm at a good part in the movie. You can pause it. I took the remote control from the table, paused the movie, and started the conversation. It's just pressing pause at a crucial moment. What's up? Jeremy, you're 38, right? That's a prime working age. Don't you think about the future? Spending all day at home drinking and watching TV isn't a plan. The future? There are plenty of 38-year-olds who aren't working. Many people enjoy life without a job. True, but those people usually have something else they're passionate about. Do you have anything like that? Yeah. I know you're upset about me not working. I'll look for another part-time job. Jeremy seemed set on sticking with part-time work. Given his reasons for leaving previous jobs and his struggles with job hunting, I had tried to be gentle, but it was time for him to get serious. I needed to be stricter. One day at work, I got a text from Jeremy. Dad's retiring, so we're going to Germany to celebrate starting today. I'm borrowing your platinum card to splurge on the trip. I panicked and called him right away. What do you mean, a trip? Exactly what I said. I don't understand. Please explain. There are so many problems here. It's okay to celebrate Brandon's retirement, but he should have asked me before using my money and borrowing the credit card. It feels like stealing. And why am I paying for a trip to Germany that I'm not even going on? Jeremy was probably bragging to his parents, claiming the money was from his savings. The thought of it infuriated me, but one thing Jeremy said caught my attention. You mentioned borrowing a credit card. The one for our house. Yeah. Why do I have a platinum card? Some people think you need a high income for it, but that's not true. Your credit history, stable income, and other factors matter, and it's achievable even in your 40s. The annual fee is high, but I use it for the benefits and points. However, that credit card is in my wallet. So you took the credit card from home. Yeah, so I'm counting on you for the payment. Jeremy was excited about his trip to Germany and spoke to me in a provocative tone. I had been patient with him for a long time, but this seemed like a good opportunity to address the situation. Jeremy thought he was being clever by taking my credit card and acting all cheerful, but he was in for a surprise. What are you doing? We need to go. Got it. I'm coming. Sorry, I need to move on now. I'll hear the details when I get back. Just one more thing. The credit card you took won't work. What? That can't be right. It's in Maria's name, and the expiry date is this month. It's short, but it shouldn't be a problem. You're lying, right? Maria, you're lying to stop me from using the card, aren't you? Yes, it expires this month. That's why I've already received a new credit card. What does that mean? So, I have 2 credit cards right now. When a new one is activated, the old one sometimes stops working. I've already started using the new card, so the one you took won't work. You're kidding, right? You think I'm lying? If you don't believe me, I can send you the link to the credit card website, or you could just try using the card yourself. It would be interesting to see you try to pay with a card that doesn't work. This credit card really won't work. Hey, hurry up. I hear his parents calling him in the background. But Jeremy, realizing the card won't work, seems too flustered to pay them any attention. What should I do? I told them I'd pay for everything except the round-trip travel. Oh, so they covered the flight? Yes. Dad felt bad about having all the trip costs covered. What should I do? I'm about to take a cab, and I don't even have money for that. That's not my problem. You said you'd pay for everything except the flight. Using my credit card in the first place was wrong. Pay with your own money. How can I? I don't have any money. Exactly. Jeremy, you haven't been working seriously. It's your fault for trying to look good by taking your parents on a trip without having the money. I'm at work, so I have to hang up now. I just wanted to tell you about the credit card. Wait, I hung up and went back to work. Jeremy, unable to pay for even the cab, would have to come clean to his parents. That night, after finishing work, I got a call from Laura. I heard from Jeremy that he tried to use your credit card and lied about working. I'm sorry for the trouble. No need to apologize, Laura. I'm sorry about the credit card issues. Are you okay with the money? We'll cover the trip's costs when we get back. I'll make sure Jeremy apologizes and finds a job right away. I'm sorry, Laura, but I'm considering divorcing Jeremy. Divorced because of this? It's part of it, but Jeremy has been taking money from me for a while. What? I stopped giving Jeremy money to curb his drinking. He started a part-time job and bought his own alcohol, but the salary wasn't enough for daily drinking. Jeremy began stealing money from my wallet to buy alcohol. Over the year, he repeatedly took amounts ranging from $7 to $70, which added up to a significant sum. I had been strict, hoping he'd change, but when he stole my credit card for his trip, it was clear he had no intention of improving. I respect your decision. Should I tell Jeremy about the divorce? Could you just tell him I want a divorce? We'll discuss the details when he gets home. About an hour later, the next morning after my call with Laura, Jeremy called. He must have heard about the divorce from her, but I had asked her to wait until he was back to discuss it. Too exhausted to deal with it, I decided not to answer. The next morning, after returning from work, I found Jeremy at home. He had cut his trip short. I'll work properly now. Please don't leave me, he pleaded as I entered the living room. Seeing Jeremy, he immediately apologized. His regrets seemed sincere, but came too late. He had a whole year to change and still asked for another chance. I had warned him repeatedly, but he squandered every opportunity. I'm not going to give Jeremy another chance because he gave up on me. My mind is made up. Can you leave? Please don't say that. If you don't leave, should I call someone to help you pack your things? I'll move out only if you can afford the rent here. Jeremy fell silent. He didn't even have the money for next month's rent, let alone any income. My words and the reality of the impending divorce made him realize the severity of his situation. With nothing to take, Jeremy seemed to be leaving the house, probably heading to his parents' place. I considered asking if he had money for transportation, but Jeremy isn't a child. He should manage his own affairs, money or not. I watched him leave, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. After leaving, Jeremy went to his parents' house. Later, I received a call from Linda. My parents-in-law let Jeremy stay for one night, but then asked him to leave the next day. They were worried he might become too reliant on them if he stayed. They wanted to create a situation where he had to fend for himself. It must have been tough for them to send their son away, but they felt it was necessary for his recovery. Kicked out from his parents' home, Jeremy came back to our house, pleading with me. Please help me. I've got nowhere to go and no money. That's the result of your own actions. You need to handle it yourself. Everyone faces hardships. Sometimes it's necessary to ask for help, but all you've done in the past year is abandon your responsibilities and do as you please. I didn't let Jeremy into the house and turned him away from the doorstep. The divorce went through eventually. Despite his reluctance, with the support of his parents, it happened faster than expected. I don't know what happened to Jeremy after we split. He's probably still jumping from job to job and making excuses for himself. I used to think I'd feel lonely without Jeremy, but I was surprised to find that I didn't feel lonely at all. Instead, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Living with Jeremy had been incredibly stressful. His attitude and constant need for reassurance kept me on edge. I was always walking on eggshells, afraid of saying something that might upset him. Now, without him around, I don't have to worry about that anymore. My life has become much more comfortable. I hadn't realized how much of a burden our relationship had been. I was constantly trying to support him both emotionally and financially, and it drained me. Now I can focus on myself and my own well-being. I'm relieved that I didn't let Jeremy drag me down with him. I was always trying to help him, hoping he would change, but it never happened. Letting go of that responsibility has been freeing. I no longer have to cater to anyone else's needs or deal with anyone else's problems. I can finally live my life on my own terms without having to accommodate anyone else. It's a fresh start, and I'm embracing it fully. I have more time for myself, more energy to pursue my own interests, and a clearer mind to think about my future. I'm grateful for this new chapter in my life, free from the stress and worry that Jeremy brought into it. I recently found out that my husband Terry purchased a high-rise condominium right across from the train station. Out of nowhere, he brought up this unexpected topic. I knew he had been considering it, but I had no idea he'd actually gone through with it. The view from the condo is breathtaking, and everything inside is spotless. But here's where it gets strange. I was completely in the dark about it. Can you believe he secretly bought a luxury condo while I was away visiting my parents? I couldn't wrap my head around it. Where did he even get the money? Then, as if it was nothing, Terry casually mentioned that he used the money from selling our previous place to make the down payment. He went on to tell me that he'd be moving in with his parents, without me. I stood there, stunned, as he calmly asked me to leave. I was so taken aback that I couldn't even respond. My name is Carol, and I'm 31, currently 8 months pregnant. Each day, I get more excited about the arrival of our baby, though I'm nervous about giving birth for the first time. My husband Terry is 2 years older than me at 33. He works at a well-known company, and we've been married for 4 years. After facing challenges with conception, I was overjoyed when we finally got pregnant. But now, this shock about the condo has left me unsure of what's happening. To calm my nerves, I've been spending more time at my in-laws' house. On one visit, Terry's sister-in-law, Madison, asked, "Carol, you're about to become a mom soon. How do you feel about it?" "To be honest, it doesn't feel quite real yet," I told her. Madison, who's married to Terry's older brother, is one of the reasons I enjoy visiting. While I don't interact much with my brother-in-law, Madison and I have grown close. She's a housewife like me and lives with my in-laws. 2 years ago, my mother-in-law's mobility started to decline, and Madison stepped in to care for her since she has experience as a caregiver. My mother-in-law mainly uses a cane to get around and does fine on her own most of the time, but Madison still helps out a lot. I've been so impressed by how easily she took on that responsibility without hesitation. Madison and her husband have a 4-year-old daughter, and watching her as a mother has eased some of my anxieties about pregnancy and childbirth. I often find myself looking to her for advice as my due date approaches. With just a month left until my baby is due, I decided to visit my parents to prepare for the birth. Despite the heaviness in my belly, I enjoyed shopping for baby clothes and daydreaming about our future. It was refreshing to spend time at my parents' house after so long. But then, 3 days past my due date, the contractions began. I tried reaching out to my husband, but he was completely unreachable. No calls, no texts, nothing. At first, I was worried that he might be caught up at work or in some sort of trouble. But as my labor pains grew stronger, I didn't have time to wonder where he was. The only thing on my mind was bringing our baby into the world. Eventually, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The moment I held her in my arms, the indescribable joy I felt washed over me, making everything else seem distant. But the fact remained. My husband, who had promised to be by my side, missed the birth. Exhausted from the delivery, I didn't have the energy to confront him right away. Instead, I sent him a brief text announcing the arrival of our daughter and then drifted into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I heard someone calling my name. "Are you still asleep?" "Terry, is it morning already?" I mumbled, opening my eyes to find my husband and his parents standing there. Despite my clear request for privacy after the birth, here they were. "Why didn't you come yesterday?" I asked, my frustration evident. He shrugged off the question, avoiding a direct answer, and casually replied, "It couldn't be helped. His tone was light, as if his absence and the sudden appearance of his parents were trivial matters. I was left grappling with a whirlwind of emotions, from the pure joy of holding my newborn daughter to the bitter disappointment in my husband. When I needed him the most, he chose to go out for sushi with his parents. He justified it by saying it was a prior commitment, and afterward, he didn't come to the hospital because he'd had a few drinks and thought he'd be more of a nuisance than a help. The knowledge that he had been enjoying a meal while I was going through labor was disheartening. And now, here he was, oblivious to my hurt, asking casually, "So, where's our baby?" I told him our baby was in the nursery, a healthy baby girl. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law grimaced and muttered, "A girl? What a useless wife," shocking me with her harsh words. My father-in-law joined in, shaking his head in disappointment, calling both Madison and me pathetic. I was stunned. Instead of receiving any gratitude for enduring childbirth, I was met with criticism. Even Terry wasn't pleased. "Damn it, I knew it was a girl, but I was hoping for a boy," he said, echoing his parents' obvious disappointment. Their frustration over not having a grandson was palpable, especially since Madison's first child had also been a girl. But to me, none of that mattered. Our daughter was precious no matter her gender. As I sat there, overwhelmed and hurt, Terry chose to side with his parents, deepening my dismay. I was seething inside, but the physical and emotional exhaustion from childbirth left me too drained to confront them. Thankfully, a nurse overheard our conversation and intervened, asking them to leave. At last, I had some much-needed peace. Since then, Terry hadn't visited us again at the hospital. When it came time for our discharge, I didn't even bother calling him. Instead, I asked my parents to pick us up and take us to their home. The thought of returning to a house filled with tension and disappointment was unbearable. As I sat at my parents' place, holding my baby, I couldn't help but reflect on the changes in Terry. He used to be so caring when we first got married. I suspected that his transformation had something to do with the significant mistake he made at work 2 years ago, a mistake that caused his company a major financial loss. Although his colleagues managed to soften the blow, sparing him direct consequences, his career took a serious hit. No matter how hard he worked afterward, he couldn't regain his previous standing. Since then, I noticed Terry becoming more detached and colder, both at work and at home. Adding insult to injury, one of his juniors at the company, who had once been less competent than him, was now his boss. This reversal of roles seemed to weigh heavily on him, fueling his irritability and distance. Even as I grew more dissatisfied with his behavior, I had hoped that the birth of our baby might inspire a change in him. But as the days passed and he didn't even try, my worry for our family's future deepened. Out of the blue, Terry finally called me. "Hey, when are you coming back? You've been at your parents' for nearly a month since the baby was born," he said, his tone flat. I wasn't ready to return home, not with everything unresolved, but I found myself replying, "Sorry. I'm coming home soon. It's time to start fresh and pull it together for our daughter," I said, trying to focus on what mattered. I asked Terry if he could help me bring back the baby items. His response left me speechless. "You don't have to bring all that stuff back. I have something else to talk about. Maybe I should have told you over the phone," he said, his tone unsettling. Confused, I pressed him for clarity. That's when he dropped another bombshell. "I bought a high-rise condo right in front of the station." I was stunned. "What do you mean? Why are you bringing this up now?" He rambled on about the condo's spectacular view and how clean and modern it was, but my mind was stuck on the fact that he had moved out of our apartment while I was away. "Where did the money come from? You can't afford a place like that on your salary," I exclaimed, panic rising. Casually, as if it was nothing, he replied, "I made the down payment by selling our house." The ground beneath me seemed to disappear. "What? You sold our house? Where are your parents living now?" I asked, my voice shaking. His excitement was apparent. "Daddy and Mommy are living with me in the condo. I'm going to live with them now, in this great new place, so I don't need a parasite like you around." I was floored. He was moving in with his parents, without my knowledge or consent, and now he was effectively kicking me out. I couldn't find the words to respond. He started referring to his parents in childish terms, boasting about their new life together in the condo. Adding insult to injury, he sneered, "You're cocky for just a housewife. You're useless without my salary. Besides, you've done nothing but laze around these days." His words hit like daggers. I stood there, reeling, questioning not only his love but how I had ended up married to someone so heartless. During my pregnancy, when I struggled with severe morning sickness and preparations for our child, he'd shown no sympathy. After the baby was born, he had coldly remarked that I was useless for having a girl. Worse still, he claimed his parents thought it would be better for him to be with a younger woman who could give him a son. He continued, explaining that his parents no longer wanted to live with my brother and his wife, indicating there was already family tension. As if that wasn't enough, he told me he had packed all my belongings and stored them in a unit, instructing me to collect them soon. The conversation turned even more brutal when he said, without emotion, "I've sent you divorce papers. I expect you to file them promptly." Then, without waiting for any response, he hung up. I sat there, stunned, the phone still in my hand. How had it come to this? I was married to a man who had turned into someone unrecognizable, someone cold and cruel. I felt regret, but more than that, I was left questioning everything I thought I knew. I knew I had to pull myself together for the sake of our daughter. After taking time to reflect, I resolved to sever ties with him and start fresh. I wasn't going to let him control my life anymore. Divorce? Bring it on. I was determined to show him he'd regret this more than I ever would. When I explained the situation to my parents, they were furious. They immediately supported me in taking legal action. As soon as I received the divorce papers, I signed and filed them. Half a month later, my husband unexpectedly showed up at my parents' house, fuming. He stormed in, slamming his bank book on the table. "What's this? Why is there a huge withdrawal from my account?" he demanded angrily. I remained calm and met his gaze. "Haven't you heard of the division of property? That's what this is. The account is in my name, and I'm not giving you a cent." His eyes widened in shock. "You couldn't have made that much money," he snapped. "Remember, your salary dropped because of your mistake at work. And now you think you can claim this money." I didn't flinch. "I've been working from home, and I've managed to match your salary. And since you're the one who wanted a divorce, we're dividing the assets." He stared at me, dumbfounded. "You've got to be kidding." That's when my father, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "If you want to dispute this, we'll settle it in court. How dare you treat my daughter this way?" The room was tense. This had escalated beyond personal grievances. It was now a matter of legal and financial justice. I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine and to protect my daughter's future. I wasn't backing down. I deeply regret that my daughter had to experience such turmoil because of Terry. One day, when he tried to confront us again, my father, who is a police officer, gave him a stern look that scared him off. Terry quickly left, and that was the moment I finally severed ties with him for good. We also resolved the division of assets. Since then, I've been living with my parents, focusing on raising my daughter. Parenting has become more familiar, and my daughter's adorable nature makes each day joyful. Life has been good, filled with the kind of happiness only a child can bring. A few months into our new life, I started receiving persistent calls from an unknown number. At first, I ignored them, thinking they might be work-related, but the caller wouldn't give up. Eventually, I answered, and to my surprise, it was Terry. "Hello, Carol," he said hesitantly. "What do you want?" I asked, skipping the small talk. "I'm having trouble paying the mortgage for the condo, and I might get kicked out soon," he confessed. "Oh, so you're short on cash?" I replied without much sympathy. "Yes, I've used up all my savings. Dad injured his back and had to quit his job, and Mom's been spending recklessly, writing to her friends about living in the condo," he explained, his voice filled with desperation. I wasn't surprised. Terry had never been good with managing money, and without his father's income and his mother's lavish spending, it was no shock he couldn't keep up with the condo's expenses. "My bank account is empty, and I've been told I need to leave if I can't pay by next week. Please, Carol, come back. We loved each other once," he pleaded. I let out a brief laugh before responding calmly, "Give me a break. You just want to use me when it's convenient for you. You think I'll come back, not for love, but for my salary and to do all the housework, right?" There was a pause. "Also, remember when you called me a parasite? Wouldn't I just be in the way now?" He tried to backtrack, but it was too late. I just chose the wrong words back then. I pressed on, asking, "What about Madison and your brother? Are they still living with your parents?" He sighed. "They moved out and are living on their own now. They had a big argument with our parents. My brother wanted Dad to be more sensible, but that only made things worse. Terry's situation seemed dire, but it was a result of his own choices. a tangled mess of financial and familial errors. It was clear he was looking for an easy way out by trying to pull me back into his life. However, I had moved on, focused on building a healthier future for myself and my daughter, free from the chaos of my past with him. Then I heard that my brother-in-law had finally had enough. He stormed out after telling their parents he'd cut ties with them if they continued to disrespect his wife, Madison. It was heartening to know he stood up for her. He seemed like a decent guy. As for Terry, his plea for me to return was met with disbelief. Come back to you. Are you serious? I'm already overwhelmed just taking care of our daughter. I don't have the energy to deal with people like you. I couldn't help but comment on how odd it was for him to still call his parents daddy and mommy. It didn't seem appropriate for someone his age. He tried to backtrack, suggesting I bring our daughter over to live with them. Weren't you planning to live with her when you first asked me to come back? I questioned, catching him off guard. I would never let my daughter live with such a despicable father. Don't ever call me again. If you show up, I'll have my dad arrest you, I warned. His response was a feeble sound, likely recalling my father's intimidating presence. I hung up and blocked his number. Not long after, he tried to reach me with a new number, but I changed mine to cut him off completely. Later, I reconnected with Madison, who reached out to apologize for her silence. She explained that they had moved to the countryside and struggled to set up the internet. Madison and her family now lived in a tranquil rural area and invited me over. When I visited for the first time, I was charmed by the serene surroundings, an ideal place for a child to grow up. During my visit, my brother-in-law shared that Terry and his parents had been evicted from their condo due to unpaid debts and were now struggling financially, a stark contrast to their previous lifestyle. It felt a bit like poetic justice. Meanwhile, I had been working from home and living comfortably at my parents' house. The flexibility of my job allowed me to work from anywhere, so I spent a few relaxing days at Madison's home. I considered the possibility of moving closer to her in the future, hopeful for what lay ahead for my daughter and me. Reflecting on the whole ordeal, buying a high-rise condo on a whim while your wife is pregnant seems absurd, unless you're quite wealthy. It's strange to take such a risk on a normal income. In any case, I felt relieved to be rid of such an unsavory husband. I hope to continue enjoying my peaceful life, possibly relocating near Madison and her family, where everyone got along and fostered a happy environment for my daughter.